All right, good afternoon, everyone. This is a hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on March 27th, 2024, in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw and its regulations. My name's Janet Williams, and I serve as the chair. Today's hearing is being broadcast live on Channel 8 and is being recorded for the on-demand archives available on the town's website. It's being conducted in person, by phone, and by video conference. So the agenda, instructions on how to attend, and copies of documents for review have been posted on the town's website. So to all participants, whether you're attending by phone or online, please remain muted unless you have been recognized by the chair. If you're attending by phone, you can mute and unmute by using *6. If you're online and you're not a commissioner, we ask that you please keep your camera turned off until you've been recognized, and you can indicate that you wish to speak by using the raised hand feature. When you've been recognized, please remember to identify yourself for the record. So that we have a record of the quorum attending today, I'll now ask each commissioner to indicate their presence. Vice Chair Karen Lattin.
Present.
Bob Rawls.
Present.
Mary Sullivan.
Present.
You're muted, but I saw your mouth move saying present. Elise Gordon.
Present.
Cheryl Maservi.
Present.
Eric Hilbert.
Present.
And we're thrilled to welcome back our newest associate member, Bob Delvecchio. We have missed you
Present.
for these past couple of months. It is wonderful to have you back with us. So
Thank you, Janet.
thank you for,
Nice to see all of you again.
it's an understatement of the century to say we have missed you. So we are very happy. So we have a full house, we have a quorum. So before we begin the agenda, I'll ask Paul Whiteman, our conservation agent, if there are any requests for continuances today.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Yes, there are two requests for continuances: 28 Cranberry Lane, Richard and Jill Tupper, and 414 Fox Hill Road, Christopher LaCroix. I'll read the legal ad when we get down to it, but...
Okay.
All right?
Yep, that's fine. So if
Anyone-
you are here for 28 Cranberry Lane or 414 Fox Hill Road, they are not being heard today. And with that, Paul, we can start at the top of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Top of the agenda, the first order of business is the requested order of conditions. 34 Scattery Road, 34 Scattery Residential Trust, map 16I, parcel 32-2, DEP number SE 103669, raise existing dwelling, construct new dwelling outside jurisdiction with pool, patio, and walls within jurisdiction, and modify existing land management plan. That is the project, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. So the draft order of conditions has been available in the Dropbox for members to access and look at. We did pick up some minor changes and formatting changes yesterday, reposted it, and there's one outstanding issue, and that I'm glad you're here, because you're the person who can answer it.
Oh, my.
So there's a finding on the coverage changes as a result of the project, and the number, I had come up looking at your plan with 1860 square feet, but the coverage table in the NOI has it at 2190 square feet. So I'm assuming that that coverage table was not updated when you did the revision to the plan, reducing the size of the patio and pool. Is that right?
Well, let me double check on that, and
Okay.
we can go through the others. And welcome back, Bob.
Thank you, Thad. It's nice seeing you again, too.
Yeah, 1860 is what I'm coming up with.
Okay, so can you please fix the coverage table in the NOI? It's not matching the figures on the approved plan. And send that to Paul, so we have that for the record.
Perfect. We'll
Okay.
have that this afternoon.
Okay. I can take that out. So, 1865, I'll change that.
1860 is what I had.
1860. Not the best of years, but okay, we'll take it for this. Question I have for you, Thad. So since this is now going to incorporate and supersede the prior order of conditions, 3576, are you going to submit a request for a certificate of compliance for that so that we can close that order out?
We will, but we want the continuum, so we didn't want to close it before this one was issued.
It's kind of a chicken and egg problem, isn't it? Because we're hesitant to issue one where there's an open order already on the property that is going to be absorbed into this plan. But, Paul, is that a problem from the process perspective if we go ahead and issue this order, or should we vote on it and then hold issuance until we get the COC request, and then we can issue all at one time? Paul? Is there any urgency with this? Would it cause a problem if we vote on it and approve the order of conditions today and then hold off on the formal issuance and sending it for recording until we have the COC?
How about just the request? Because we can have that in this afternoon.
Yeah, but we have to approve it. It's kind of, and that won't happen until next week.
Right.
I just don't
They do
know
wanna
whether
have it-
issuing this actually isn't going to be issued by next week, so, I mean, I guess it could theoretically, but it has to go to the recorder's office. Register.
Well,
Ah.
I think this is a little bit unusual, the situation. I think we could make an exception in this case and you go ahead and do it that way. Until
Okay.
Thad gets this in for the next hearing, we can vote on it.
Okay, then get that in, and we'll vote on that next week, so there'll be as little overlap
Okay.
as possible. Okay, so then the final revised plan that we're approving with this supersedes the old plan. The old plan just goes away.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that is because it
So
incorporates the planting that was approved under 3576 but hasn't been done yet, and will now be done under the single order. Okay. I got it.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Questions, comments? Questions, comments down here? Anybody? Thad, do you have any questions or comments on it?
Oh, I think we were good with the order.
All right, let's have a motion then to close and approve.
I move that we close the hearing and approve the order of conditions for 34 Scottery Road.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Sustain.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye, and that is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, Paul, what's the next one?
Next on the agenda, Madam Chair, is another request for an order of conditions. 127 Christopher Harding Lane, Rolf Nixon, map 12D, parcel 3-L6, DEP number SE10 3661. Project is redevelopment of the site.
All right, thank you. So we've also had this order drafted and reviewed by members. We did run some of the changes. There are a few more. Looks like somebody couldn't help herself and made a bunch of formatting changes. Came to regret that. But are there any other questions, comments, issues around 127 Christopher Harding? Anything from your
Madam
side,
Chair.
Thad? Oh,
Yeah,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
yes,
yeah, Bill Early,
yes.
on behalf of the applicant, we actually have two concerns. One is, you're putting a standard order where no grubbing after April 1st. They're in the middle of this project, and they would like to get the work done but if you only have 4 days to do it, theoretically, it's a 10-day appeal period. So we'd like to have that aspect of the order go into effect on April 20th, give time for the appeal to run out, appeal period to run out, and then to get the work done. That would be one issue. The next issue is something you and I have discussed in previous matters, where you have the standard language about no coastal engineering structures, but we're not doing anything to expand the existing building. And I don't think it's appropriate to have this sections 11 and 12 of the specific conditions.
The general,
included in the order.
yeah,
In the general, right.
right. You're right, there's no project within 100 feet of the bank involved here. Okay, these are, as usual, Attorney Riley, I'll take it out.
All right, thank you very
For this
much.
one.
Of course.
Anything else?
Just to
Okay,
give us enough time to get the thing grubbed out so we can finish the project before the summer starts.
okay. All right, anybody else? All right, I'm going to go ahead and accept all these changes and take a motion.
I move that we close the hearing and approve the order of conditions for 127 Christopher Harding Lane.
Gordon second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Eric.
Again, I was not here when this started, so I'll sustain.
Okay, Cheryl.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that is 6-4, 1 abstention.
So, Madam Chair, so that's as amended by our request?
As amended, yes, as I just changed it here.
Great.
Yep,
Thank you very much
you're good to go.
for your help.
Thank you. All right, Paul, where do we
Okay,
go
Madam
next?
Chair. All right, next on the agenda is a submitted extension request. The address is 0 and 17 Billings Road, Infinity AC LLC, map 7A, parcel 6-S8 and 5-57, DEP number SE103310. Proposed repair and modification of an existing bulkhead. Extension requested due to new property ownership. Currently working with new owner to finalize plans and will be filing an amendment following his extension being granted. This is the second request for an extension, and it will now run to 5/20/2025 if granted.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone here from Coastal yes, hello.
Hi, good afternoon. Cole Bateman from Ty and Bond, formerly Coastal Engineering, representing the applicant for his project here at 17-0 Billings Road. Yes, this used to be the old Cordell Hall property. It's a very distinguished property along this area of town right next to Harding's Beach. There was the previous order to repair and sort of replace the flanking return walls of the bulkhead. We're working with the current new owners to potentially expand on that scope, and in order to bring a proposed amendment to the commission, we request this extension to the existing permit. Thank you.
Well, I have a question. So what work has been done on the property since the order was issued?
I believe no work has been done.
Okay, because I found a request, last year, at this time last year, there was a request for an extension, and it said the same thing. Extension is requested due to new property ownership, currently working with new owners to develop and finalize plans. And that effort, that effort of finalizing plans is still ongoing?
Yeah, a little outside of the scope of this proposed project was some DEP involvement for the existing dwelling that we're working through now. So that was part of the scope that we were originally working through as the part of the last year extension request. With this proposed work that will be coming hopefully with amendment for the dwelling is going to be removed from that proposed scope, and it's a much more streamlined, we believe it's a much more streamlined process for this proposed work. So this past week, I had essentially an approval from the owner to move forward with presenting an amendment, the amended plan to the commission, and we anticipate to do that within the next few days or week or so.
Okay, so we can expect an amendment request to come next.
I believe the process, yeah, exactly. I believe the process we're anticipating is to do the informal meeting at one of the next two commission hearings. I know there's one on the 10th. Probably won't meet that one. Potentially we'll make that one, but maybe we'll be targeting the next one. And then if the commission approves it as a potential amendment, we would be following up for the public notification process to attend the whatever meeting comes after that.
Okay, and so this is the second, so you'll have 1 year. The amendment does not change the expiration date, so you're still going to have 2 years from today before the permit expires to get the work done. I also noticed that in the order of conditions, there's a natural heritage letter from 2019 authorizing the project, but I'm going to read what the order of conditions says. Natural Heritage asked, upon any filing for a renewal, extension, amendment, certification of compliance, the applicant shall contact the division for a written response regarding impacts to resource area habitat for the state-listed wildlife. So if you have not done so, I would urge you to get a hold of them and let them know what the status of it is and that you've gotten an extension and you're going to be getting an amendment, and they may want to have another look at the plover situation there.
Okay, very good. And I imagine it's the same thing for DMF.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, questions or comments? Anybody? All right, let's take a motion then.
I move that we approve a 1-year extension for 0 and 17 Billings Road to May 20th, 2025.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Sustain.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that's granted for 1 year, and we'll see you back here soon for an amendment.
Very soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Paul, what's next?
Next is a request for a determination of applicability. The address is 560 Orleans Road, 560 Orleans Road, LLC. Stephen Goldstein, map 13J, parcel 7-G20, R-24-6. Project is pier repair. And John
You're
Riley,
muted
see
there,
that?
John. Go ahead, go ahead. Yep,
I'm sorry.
You're good.
Can you hear me now?
yep, I can.
Thank you. Mr. Goldman is on the call as well, but we're here hopefully for a simple request for determination. We were engaged this past late summer, early fall to do a notice of intent to replace the dock in kind. Unfortunately, the dock had a failure in one of the sections, so we're trying to repair that one section, get through the summer, and then file a notice of intent for the replacement. The work is will be done by hand. We'll match the dimensional lumber of the joists and the decking, including size and spacing. But we're just trying to get through the summer. We're not doing any work on the piles or the posts. And the decking will be cut and maintained and mobilized from the driveway of the main house. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. So because I understand the situation, there will be an NOI coming for the full replacement. It does have to be these two sections. It's the last two sections, correct? The one that's sitting mostly on the ground, and the one closer to the water also needs to be replaced, right?
Yeah, in talking with Beacon Marine, who will be doing the work for Mr. Goldstein, they felt that we just really needed to correct the failed component
okay.
and didn't need
So
to
it's
address
just the
the
one.
other. Because
Yep.
Just the one. We didn't want to get into dealing with the posts because those things sit in water, actually in the creek bed. So we'd rather just do the repair and then tackle everything at one time.
Okay, so because this is an RDA, we can't attach a bunch of conditions to it, so I'm just going to say that we will be willing to issue a negative determination based on the assertions that you are making, that this is all going to be done by hand, that it's going to match the existing timber, it's going to be using the existing supports, and there'll be no machinery or other impact to the marsh area for this. I will note that in the letter conveying all of this, you made the statement that the applicant is also seeking to reconstruct the seasonal float. I would hope that's not part of this, because reconstructing floats generally does bring with them a lot of conditions that are not appropriate for an RDA. So is that not part of this? You're just looking to do the repair of the pier?
We were hoping to do the replacement float at the same time.
Is it a new float? And
The float that was out there has fallen into disrepair, and so we are reconstructing the float in the approved license size. I believe it's 9 by 10. Currently, the float that has been used comprised of timber and styrofoam. The new dock would be plastic tubing, tubs, if you will, no styrofoam. So it provides some float, and but it would match the same size as it was currently being used in years past.
And it's all being fabricated off-site, so what activity would be conducted on-site to, is it the same that would happen
Nothing-
seasonally for any
nothing more
float? Is that,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Yes, exactly. It would be floated up the creek. The two pipe piles that are licensed, and then as it has been in springtime for years, would be floated and then set, and then the ramp would be installed.
okay. Questions?
I don't have any questions. I think it is probably beneficial to not stand in the way of replacing the styrofoam float if possible.
Yep. And again, I agree, because that's a better thing, but the same as before, we'd be willing to give this a negative determination based on the statements that you're making, that there's no impact to this activity in the resource area. Other
That's our
questions?
intention.
Go ahead, Bob.
Just one small thing. How will you dispose of the styrofoam?
That's a great question. I properly, I guess, would be the answer I would give you, but I would have to check with Beacon and make sure that it's properly disposed of. Beacon Marine, excuse me.
Okay. Yeah, we can't attach any conditions to this, but, okay.
Do we have any idea what properly means? In this case, I don't know, but properly is the right answer.
Well, if you would like, I can certainly provide Paul a letter once I have a chance to talk to Beacon as to where they'll be disposing of not only the lumber, but the styrofoam.
Yes, that would be good. Thank you for,
Yeah, we can do that.
all right. That. Okay, any other questions, comments? If not, we are ready for a -2.
I move that we approve 560 Orleans Road for the request for determination of applicability with a -2 determination.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote, Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. We'll
Thank
look
you very
forward to
much.
getting that letter, because we are now curious about how one properly disposes of styrofoam. It must be a licensed facility.
Next
Okay.
email is to Beacon Marine. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, Paul, what is next?
Next on the agenda, Madam Chair, is a request to discuss the herring run maintenance. Mr. Keon is here, and I believe Brad is here as well, either online or downstairs there with you.
Nope, they are here in the room, so I'm going to hand it over to
Okay,
them.
let me just read it. It's 86 Purcell Drive, Town of Chatham, Mass. Division of Marine Fisheries, map 10J, parcel 12-11, R23-12. The Hydronomous Fish Passage Restoration Project.
Very good, thank you. Ted Keon, Coast Resource Director, and with me is Brad Chase from Division of Marine Fisheries. We came before you folks back in early fall. At that time, we were proposing two projects, or one project and one sort of for the record, if you will, and the for the record was relative to establishing a protocol for our annual maintenance at the Riders Cove Herring Run. We provided a draft at that time. There were some minor questions and comments on that draft. We've made those revisions. The other project that we were referring to was also accomplished last fall. It was very successful with the crew from Division of Marine Fisheries to enhance our weir structures that are located in the stream bed and some stream bank erosion protection. Again, that project went extremely well, and the herring run is up and running so far quite well. So we're back here now really just for some housekeeping, we hope, to put the memorandum relative to our annual maintenance, in the file on the record with your endorsement for future work for our, maintenance activities. And I'm sure Brad can expand on what I've just introduced.
Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's a fairly straightforward guidance document to allow the removal of natural debris jams, tree falls, sand shoaling that occur in these fish runs that have been maintained really for centuries by local folks. This allows it to be considered under the President Wetlands Protection Act and as well as Conservation Commission. So fairly straightforward, but be happy to answer any questions.
We don't have that document.
No.
Well, I'm looking under the address, filed under 86. Yeah, I'm not,
It's not in our Dropbox.
does anybody have a paper copy?
I do.
Okay,
We
so-
did provide it. I
Nope.
thought it had been disseminated.
Sometimes things lose their way on their way to us. It's not all that unusual, but I would just ask if you would please, double check and resend, and we will, at our convenience. Oh, thank you, this is all the detail. Okay.
Great.
Yeah, I can't look at it now, but we will review it and tell you what, we'll take a look at it, and if we have questions or concerns, we would ask, schedule a date where you can come back and answer any of those questions, but without being able to look at it now. We'd also like to see the video, if that would be okay. 'Cause,
And just to clarify what that's in reference to, we did, just last Friday, another round of our maintenance with AmeriCorps group project, as well as Brad showed up, our herring warden. Again, it went very well. The fact that we've been able to maintain the run over the last few years has really made these maintenance activities less involved, if you will. So by noon, we were basically all done. And because the town is quite interested in sort of highlighting little efforts and projects that are sort of outside the public view, they had our channel, Chatham TV crew show up and videotape some of the activities. They spoke to Brad and our herring warden for some background on what was happening, and that should be out for public dissemination very shortly. So I
Look forward
encourage
to
you to look
seeing that.
at it.
That's great. That's all great news, how that process has
Yep.
become increasingly streamlined and efficient over time.
Absolutely.
It's great. Yeah, sorry about whatever happened, that we didn't get this, but we'll take a look at it, and we will get back to you if we have
Yeah, I
any
apologize.
concerns. But I don't know, it just happens sometimes.
Yep.
We have both paper copies and digital copies, and we are transitioning from one storage file system to another right now. So there's lots of opportunities for things to
Understood.
Sure.
lose their way.
If I could recap briefly, so.
Sure.
We did come before the commission twice on this before.
Yep.
And the second time, there were 2 comments for edits. One was related to cutting trees, caliper trees, saying it's not allowed. And I made both those edits. So the version that you will see has been reviewed twice, and it had the 2 edits made from the August hearing. So hopefully a fairly clean document.
So when I turned it over, the first sentence that just jumped out at me is stream bank growth, including small caliper trees, has ecological value and will not be removed unless a condition impedes fish passage or exacerbates erosion.
That was an edit to make it clear that you couldn't cut trees on the stream bank
Okay.
with this plan.
Yep.
Really looking to remove things that are in the way of passage in the
Yep.
channel.
I don't anticipate that we'll have any questions or issues. So, did you see that? Because you were the one who had brought that up. You don't need to react to it this second. Yeah, no, it just didn't get
I
posted.
just looked there and it's not. We're all checking.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for doing that, for listening, and appreciate it, and good project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Paul, where do we go next? Oh, wait,
Next, we move on to the decision on an independent vernal pool consultant. I'll read the legal ad in full. The following applicants have filed a notice of intent. 240 and 438 George Ryder Road, 1652 Main Street, Chatham Municipal Airport, map 9F, 240, 10G, 438, 8E, 1652 Main, parcel 0-2, 240, 18K1, 438, 53-27, 1652 Main, DEP number SE10 3658. The proposed project includes vegetative management required to remove obstructions within navigable airspace in compliance with the Federal Aviation Administration FAA regulations. Madam Chair, you were going to narrow the next, I'll leave that to you. I don't want to read them, whatever order you want to take them, and I think there were 3 that you wanted to focus on today. Performance
Yes.
standards and resource areas, variance and
performance-
mitigation, and
yep.
whirlpool, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep,
Alrighty.
we have, I think we have finished, this will be the end of the discussion. I hope it's the end of the discussion, we're getting close to the end of it in general. But the first aspect will be to talk about the vernal pool and bring that to some closure, at least temporarily. And then I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to ask any questions they have about the performance standards, the variance requests, and any proposed mitigation. Do you have something that you would like to present?
Adrian Dunk from GZA on behalf of the applicant. We did bring information about our proposed mitigation, specifically a more
Right.
robust invasive species plan that I'd like to run through with the commission. And I also put together some information from the generic environmental impact reports and the subsequent updates over time to those reports regarding impacts to wildlife habitat from vegetation management, because I did hear last time from the Conservation Commission that the conversion of forest to shrubland was, there was some skepticism on the wildlife habitat value given that conversion, and that is a fairly well documented, there's a lot of interest in that at airports, so there's many years of studies on that, so I did want to highlight the findings. Other than that, we are here to answer outstanding questions, and we understand that you have requested a third-party review. We have a few comments on the scope of that review that we would like to discuss with the commission.
Okay, that's fair. We did vote on that last time, and since then, we did issue a request to a couple of different firms to submit proposals. We have 2 that came in, and they're a little bit hard to balance, because one is from the gentleman who is clearly the state leading expert on the vernal pools, the founder of the Vernal Pool Association, et cetera, so of course that got our attention. But the other is from also a very good ecological consulting firm who has experience in assessing vernal pools. And so we took another look at that since yesterday, and we believe that either one would be acceptable for the limited scope of this work. This is not a full-blown peer review. This is an on-site field assessment of the current status of this pool, because it hasn't been assessed since 2006, I think. And even then, it's not clear to me that the certification, how much of that rested on actual field work versus paper, but no one's looked at it since then. And because there's only 2 vernal pools in Chatham, and we've not had any prior experience with either of them, we don't feel comfortable recommending or requiring any particular conditions in an order of conditions with respect to the vernal pool without being very sure that these are the measures that will do the most to protect. We know that vernal pools receive the highest level of protection from the state, as well as under the bylaw, so we're just being extra cautious to make sure that the conditions are effective, that they work to protect the pool, that they're not going too far, but they're going at least far enough to make sure. So, I don't know why I'm seeing me on this.
I know.
Not what I'm gonna,
So we absolutely respect the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction and ability to
I'm turning it
require
off.
that third-party review.
Yep.
And we appreciate that it is specific to the vernal pool area and not the VMP globally. We have some concerns that there's a request to look for rare species, rare and threatened species, as none are mapped there, and that we have incorporated best management practices actually that are typically required by natural heritage. So we feel that we are being protective. But more importantly, when coming before the Conservation Commission, any Conservation Commission, an applicant has a responsibility to review their property for priority habitat and estimated habitat for rare species. And if there is that habitat and work is proposed there, they must coordinate with natural heritage. If there is not mapped habitat there, there's not a requirement to survey for rare species. And so here we have priority habitat mapped within the ponds. We have coordinated with natural heritage. We do have a finding of no take. And so it does seem precedent setting to request that an applicant go and look for rare species, because that seems like all applicants then could be required to look for the presence of rare species when filing a notice of intent for any type of project.
I hear that, but isn't it the case that the concern is whether there are rare species there or not? And if there are, and we don't know about it, it would seem to me that we would all be in everyone's best interest to have a conclusive answer to that question.
But rare species could occur anywhere. There could be box turtles in people's yards.
But
So-
this is a certified vernal pool.
Which means that it is occupied by facultative and obligate species, which may or may not be rare. By being certified, we're not disagreeing that there are animals using that pool. And we are not disagreeing that we're following best management practices to protect those species. So whether they're there or not wouldn't change, the conditions, in our opinion, because there already are standards from natural heritage that have been integrated into the development of the plan before you.
So I'm looking at the one that I think we're going to propose be hired, and it says they will provide an environmental analysis of the certified vernal pool and identify all amphibian, reptile, invertebrates, and plant species contained in the vernal pool and surrounding vernal pool buffer zone. The final report will include a narrative explanation of the associates' methods, results, impact analysis, regulatory implications, photos, and figures. It doesn't say they're looking for rare species. They are looking to tell us what exists and what impact, and we're looking for an impact analysis as well. And, because whatever we put into the order, we want to make sure that we are protecting whatever's there. But you haven't presented saying to us, this exists in the vernal pool, that you saw frogs or salamanders or whatever. And so we need somebody to come and tell us, advise us, not tell us, advise us and, as to what we need to do to protect this area. And that's why we're interested in hiring somebody. And yes, we do need, they may be rare, but it's looking for anything, not just rare. And I couldn't find where you say what exists in that vernal pool.
Right, we did not perform a vernal pool study
Right.
because the species themselves that are in there, the animals, the organisms, are not protected by the Wetland Protection Act or the bylaw.
The habitat
is.
The habitat is.
The habitat,
Yes.
the
Yes.
ability, the capacity of the habitat to
Right.
provide wildlife.
And that's what we
Habitat
want
is.
to make sure that that habitat is protected. And so we need to know what habitats we're trying to protect. Whether it be frogs, which would be different than salamanders. And so I respectfully disagree with your viewpoint on that.
Our opinion and our experience tells us that if it's frogs, or if it's salamanders, or if it's a combination of them, they are protected by avoiding amphibian migration periods with a time of year restriction. We are proposing to observe a time of year restriction. That's an existing requirement of the DRI imposed by the Cape Cod Commission. So that time of year restriction will be observed for this work, even if nothing was seen there today.
Right.
So the exact species wouldn't impact that. Other vegetation management plans across the Commonwealth have had rare species, have had rare amphibians, have had salamanders, they've had rare turtles, obviously reptiles, and they are protected, and vernal pools are protected by phasing the tree removal around the vernal pool, which we have proposed to do. So we understand there's significant interest and there's significant value in the vernal pool.
I have a question real quick.
Our contention is just that we've taken protective measures and that knowing if it's
Well, you
fairy
say
shrimp-
protective measures. Is phasing tree removal something that you would say constitutes a best practice?
That is a recommendation by Natural Heritage for work around vernal pools within rights-of-way and airports that contain rare species. Yes.
Eric, go ahead.
Well, back on that subject, I'm interested, I would be interested to see what their advice is on the shade impact on the vernal pool.
Exactly.
For what species are in the vernal pool. I mean, this is not like any other vernal pool. You can't categorize this vernal pool as Massachusetts. It's Chatham, and, that's what we're here for. We're here to try to, protect what natural resources we have. So this is a protective measurement for our reputation. I think it's important.
We don't, I understand what you're saying, taking best practices into account. On the other hand, we don't really know what's there. You're removing shade, as was said. What harm would there be to the interests of your project for us to take time to assess what's in the pool? This is one of two vernal pools. If we were to receive a project affecting the other vernal pool in Chatham, we would probably take the same measures. So I don't see it as discriminatory in that regard.
The challenges to the project include timeline. We do appreciate that the Conservation Commission and your agent have acted expeditiously to obtain these bids for the third-party review. But increasing our timeline of review is, it is jeopardizing existing grants. Application deadlines are coming. It's increasing, it's really pinching our ability to get this work done this year, get it funded by the funding agencies, as well as the the airport commission, as the applicant, would be expending these funds to pay for this study. They may be needing to go, up to the town manager to appropriate those funds. So there's those more administrative constraints on the project. And then the other factor is just that I understand this is Chatham, and Chatham's not the same as Pittsfield. But there's been 30 years of study on this. And we're leaning on that 30 years of accepted study to say what the best management practices are for this work that's well understood. And so we believe we're incorporating protective measures, and that if we find out that it's wood frog, or if we find out that it's fairy shrimp, that's not fundamentally going to change the work or change the protective measures.
Right.
But it is going to increase the cost and timeline to the town to be able to pursue this safety work and protect pilots and protect the public around the airport.
It shouldn't, based on what you're saying. It's not, and I agree that in many ways it's not really relevant what species are actually in the vernal pool, because the standards for the protection of the habitat around the vernal pool remain in place. And it's that we are focused on. I mean, I think that we did say no one really knows what's in there. It may be that there aren't any. I mean, we just don't know because it hasn't been assessed in 20 years. But I think that, with all due respect, while we are working on developing an order of conditions, this work would be ongoing. It's not that we're going to stop the process and wait for this to happen. And as I look at the Oxbow proposal, work to begin within 10 days of the town giving notice to proceed. So this would be fairly fast-tracked. And as we said last time, it's fortunate that this is the right time of year. So I don't believe it would have any significant delay. It does have an extra cost, but I don't think that, given the amount, that's all that significant. We are going with the lower-priced proposal, recognizing that we don't need to spend more of the town's money than we absolutely have to get an answer to our questions, which are really more about making sure that the measures that we approve or require are adequate for the purposes of protecting this habitat. And we, being the first time we're going through a vernal pool process in the application, I think we want that extra layer of confidence that we know that this order of conditions will be doing what it needs to do. At least that's my view. I don't know, anybody else have, go ahead, Elise.
I understand both sides, but I think we have an obligation to the town and to the taxpayers of the town and to the people who are passionate about conserving what we have. And 10 days to 15 days of work while we're going through the process of the final order of conditions seems minimal to me. And the cost, in my opinion, is also minimal. I think we have an obligation.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Cheryl.
And while I respect that your priority is the pilots and their safety, our priority actually is salamanders and their safety. So that's where we're going to side on, or at least I am, because that is our priority. It is not my priority to serve the airport. It's my priority to take care of the conservation of this town.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I just want to add that after this review, maybe they'll say that, because we're throwing around topping the trees around the vernal pool, and maybe they might say, well, it's not necessary to top the trees, so that might work in your favor.
All right, well, as I said, we understand it's absolutely your right to require this review, and we appreciate being heard on the subject.
We hear your concerns. We will do all we can to make sure this doesn't have any really negative impact on the timing of your project. It has a slight impact on the cost, but again, I don't think it's significant in the larger scheme of the costs that this project is bringing to this town. So with that, if anybody else has anything to say about that, I think we're ready for a motion to Oxbow.
I move that we approve the proposal for services from Oxbow Associates Incorporated to evaluate the vernal pool.
Gordon, second?
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that is unanimously approved. All right, so do you want to, do you want to go through your presentation, or? what
Can
do
I
you-
just ask
you-
one question
Sure.
real quick before we move
Yeah,
on
yeah.
from that? Could you let us know what the cost of that would be, just so that we
Oh,
can?
don't you have a copy of it?
No,
We-
we
Oh.
did not receive
No.
copies of it ahead of time.
Oh, sorry, it's $3,900.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Yeah.
Paul?
Well, under the regulations, they get notice after you make your decision. They'll get the whole package, but that doesn't happen until you make your decision, because we don't start throwing money around until you finally decide which one you're going to pick. So we'll get that. I'll actually bring it downstairs before they leave.
Okay, you'll see, he'll bring you the proposal. It's a firm cost proposal, it's $3,900.
Great, thank you.
So, sorry about that, but I guess that's right, we don't share it until we do it. Now,
That's fine.
okay. So long as we have an opportunity to address make sure that everybody is clear and don't have lingering questions on performance standards or variances or mitigation, you can go ahead with whatever you have for
Okay,
presentation.
great.
Closed caption at the bottom.
Oh, I don't know how to turn the
Who's,
closed
yeah, I don't know,
captioning
where's that
off.
coming from? The closed captioning.
From their,
Oh,
from their computer.
There you go.
my
Oh,
mistake. It's PowerPoint can do that now.
I didn't know.
Who
It's their
knew?
new AI capacity.
I didn't know till this moment.
Yeah.
Great, so we'll go through our mitigation discussion first. I think that might, that ties in with probably
Yep.
outstanding questions on the variance request. So we have discussed a little bit invasive species removal. We were asked to provide additional detail. So I'd like to run through the elements of, we've prepared a draft invasive species control plan. I'd like to run through those elements with you all today.
Yep.
Based on that feedback, we'll finalize the written document and submit it to the commission.
Okay.
So it's organized into 4 elements: the identification of target invasive species, the delineation of treatment areas, establishment of treatment methods and schedule, and then what the monitoring success standards and reporting would be. So the target species, we've observed invasive species kind of throughout the area at low levels versus, a single monotypic stand. And primarily, the observed invasive species have been European buckthorn, Asiatic bittersweet, multiflora rose, Russian olive, and Morrow's honeysuckle. It's possible that some other low-density species are out there, but some of our most pernicious species, the Japanese knotweed, barberry, they've not been directly observed by us to date. We're proposing the 1-to-1 mitigation area because we've heard from the commission and heard at other hearings that the tree mitigation and the area of impact mitigation should be treated separately. So we had previously discussed maybe a larger invasive species management plan for some reduction of tree mitigation, but my understanding is they need to be kept kind of separate avenues. So we are proposing to conduct invasive species treatment treatment wherever vegetation management plan tree removal occurs. So again, that would be, when, for the approach surfaces, before, during, and after that work, and then the transition surfaces, sort of the invasive species plan would reset for those areas independently. We did review several methods. We had previously taken a more conservative approach of no herbicide and said just manual cutting and removal, but based again on some of the conversations we've had with you, we are aware that herbicides other than glyphosate are allowed. So we are proposing a cut and dab method using triclopyr as the preferred herbicide, with limited foliar spray from a backpack sprayer if warranted. So that's if a monotypic stand is observed, then that method may be more appropriate in that limited area. Or on repeat treatments when it's ground cover, and a cut and dab would not be in any way efficient, then that targeted foliar spraying may be used. The plan would require a Massachusetts Department of Agricultural Resources approved certified herbicide applicator to do the application. Triclopyr was selected because it is on MDR's sensitive materials list for use near wetlands. And the work would be performed in accordance with those applicable regulations at 333 CMR 11.04. And then we have a document, and we'll be attaching it to this plan that's from Natural Heritage, and it's for vegetation management in rights-of-way adjacent to vernal pools. And those are vernal pools in rights-of-way with rare species, rare salamanders. So we are proposing to follow those restrictions for the herbicide application. Those restrictions are closely tied with MDR's requirements, so it's a little bit repetitive, but we have that guidance from Natural Heritage, and we want to follow it. We are proposing a treatment schedule, which includes a pre-survey of the proposed cutting areas during the growing season to identify where those rare species are and their relative densities, and where potential monocultures either maybe have developed from our last survey or are likely to develop. And then in the first year following cutting, or potentially during the same time as cutting, based on the exact time of year the cutting's performed, there would be an initial treatment. So that's to really keep the invasives knocked back and allow those native shrubs to grow in with as little invasive competition as reasonable. And then for 2 additional years after the cutting, so 3 years total, there would be monitoring during the early growing season to see where invasive species are coming back. And if treatment is needed, the treatment would then be contracted with a certified herbicide applicator to perform it during the growing season, whether that's more appropriate in the early, mid, or late growing season based on the species needs. To provide the monitoring success standards, we are proposing a standard of no net increase in invasive species cover from existing conditions today. So we would be comparing each year back to our pre-survey results. During the pre-survey, study plots would be established, so at least one study plot per cutting area, because we know some of our cutting areas are like 1,600 square feet, one plot there, multiple plots in larger cutting areas. And those plots will be field located that first year. A stake will be put in so that they can be returned to and monitored on subsequent years with photos of the same locations. There will also be a meander survey throughout the cutting area to observe other invasive species. We know from one single point you can't see the whole thing, so it'll be a combination of plots and meander surveys. And then for reporting, we would be committing to submitting an annual report to the Conservation Commission by the end of each year. That would include, the species locations, percent cover, and the photos, as well as if treatment occurred, where that occurred, the aerial extent of that treatment, and any other management methods that may have been used, cutting and bagging to remove material. And then a comparison to the previous survey so that you can see a, change over time. So that is the invasive species management plan. As I said, we're considering it a draft plan so that we can incorporate your feedback and before finalizing and submitting it in writing.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Let me open it to questions from commission members. I'll start down here with Elise.
I don't have any specific.
Okay.
I don't have any specific questions at the moment.
Okay, we'll come back if you do. Bob?
Thank you for this. This is more or less along the lines of what I was looking for, so I'm very happy to see it. I would like to have little bit more details about how many survey plots there will be per area.
Is there a standard the commission usually requires, or we can make a recommendation?
Yeah, go ahead and make
but-
one up, and then we'll react to it. But yeah,
Okay.
obviously, if they're too far apart, then it has less value. But the meander survey would, depending on how rigorous that was, could serve to fill in the gaps, as it were. So, yeah, this is the sort of thing that I thought should have been in the application, and I'm glad to see it.
All right, thank you. This side, Cheryl.
I have a question, I think it's just because I'm misunderstanding. Under your first thing that says, compared to pre-survey results, no net increase in invasive species covers. Now, does that mean that there won't be more invasive species on that plot as, like, pre-survey I think of as today?
Correct.
And so it will never be worse than it is today, but it won't be better than it is today.
It won't be worse than it is today. Today it has pretty low density.
Oh, that's true, right.
So, today it's pretty low density. We don't want it to be any worse than today. We certainly, would like it to be
Yeah,
better than today. We are expecting, a lot of this is about setting up the Native community for success.
Right.
So keeping it low density so that Native community can take off and be resilient.
Okay, yeah. I'm just curious if there's some way we can say we want it to be better than it started instead of equal to when we started, but I don't know how to say that without having to count every single little invasive plant on the plot. We're not doing that. So I'll have to think about it. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
There is some guidance again, from the studies that have been performed at airports, and based on those, because there's always the chance of introduction of species and reintroduction of species from birds and wind and animals, and that the eradication is not really a feasible goal. And so exactly, kind of maintaining, if there's low densities now, maintaining low densities, if there's high densities, getting to a low density state is a goal.
I do have one question, because you had listed earlier a lot of the things that are on that property. Excuse me. And I have heard a couple of landscapers here talk about, they call it Chatham berry, but I guess we call it porcelain berry. Is there porcelain berry there? Because it just seems to run wild, so I'm just curious. You didn't have that
I don't
listed.
recall seeing it during the preparation of the VMP. Someone other than me did a habitat, did review the conditions, and they did not identify that either. It's certainly possible that it's out there, and if it was observed within these cutting areas, it would be treated. So if there's species other than those that are listed, they would also be managed, and that would be reported to the Conservation Commission. Hey, we did see porcelain berry, and this is what we did about it. Or if we did see Phragmites, this is what we did about it.
Yeah, I just know that I live kind of in that same general area, and porcelain berry is taking over my property.
It's very aggressive.
It's very
yes.
aggressive.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So let's look at the protocol here. So you plan on taking if you take all the trees down in the winter, right? And then how long after that before you trample in there and swipe and take care of the invasives? I mean, it's a shock to the system as it is. You're going to be taking a bunch of trees down. It's a lot of work, a lot of noise. And then you're going to go back in there again. When did you plan on going back in? And when did you plan on having the trees removed? What is the timeline?
The intention is to have the tree, so for vegetation management plans, trees must be removed during frozen, dry, or otherwise stable conditions.
No, it's not frozen.
Our plan is to remove the trees in early winter of 2025, January. When
Right.
it's hopefully frozen and there's decreased
And then when do you
animal
expect
movement.
that the trees will be removed? What
January,
month?
January 2025.
And then after that, when do you predict to be going in there and swiping and cutting and fooling around with the invasives?
It would be during the growing season, so April or May of 2025.
And that's
because
when,
it would not be a-
that's the highlight of nesting. Right?
Yep.
Okay. I think that after the trees are removed, I think we should revisit the site to see what the invasives look like. because you really can't get in there and you can't tell, but you can once the trees are removed, and I think that, you know, it's appropriate to look at it then.
I mean, if the commission wants to look at it right after the trees are removed, certainly,
you
we're
can
not
really-
opposed to that,
we
but
can really
treatment can't occur then,
Yeah,
because it wouldn't be effective. The plants aren't bringing that material down to their roots.
Right.
So treatment has to occur during the growing season to be effective.
Is it like some of the, I mean, we know for some certain invasive species, treatment is best done in the late summer, early fall, when that process of pulling into the roots is underway. Is that generally true? Is that what you would anticipate, that it would be, you'd start that treatment in the late summer, early fall of 2025?
The Connecticut Invasives Program has pretty robust profiles for these species, and the ones that we've identified, they didn't emphasize that late growing season. I know that's particularly important for knotweed.
Knotweed, yeah. But we
So
don't have that
these-
either. so
We've not observed knotweed on
Thank
site.
God, okay.
but it's
Yep.
kind of a unique situation. It's a vernal pool. To be going in there in May, at the highlight of the nesting season, and to be doing this then versus doing it at the end of the summer when everything is mature enough to get out of your way, when people are in there doing their thing.
If we wait till the end of the growing season, the concern is that the invasives have an opportunity to get a firm toehold.
They've already had a firm toehold.
I mean, they're in low densities now, so, yes, they are in there and they have a toehold, but
I find it
Allowing-
very unusual that that many more invasive species are going to reroot in that period of time to the end of the summer versus the
oh,
beginning
no,
of the
they
summer.
love disturbance, they love light, that's a,
I know.
I keep telling you, the GEIR says this is okay.
Mm.
It says invasives are a big deal and you gotta nip them in the bud. And so
I
that's what we
personally
really
think
wanna
that after you
get those.
take a bunch of trees down, and it's such a shock to the area, I don't see why you just can't wait till the end of the summer to do your first, invasive act. I just don't personally see the difference.
I think that would be much less successful, to take the invasives
It's
out. Around
done
the
all the
vernal
time.
pool, the Natural Heritage does say to don't be in there, between mid-March and late May. So around the vernal pool, we would wait till after late May, but we'd do it in June then, because it is important to not controlling an invasive species once it has a large stand, a monotypic stand, it has a lot of area, it's very challenging.
I really appreciate you very concerned about the invasive species around this vernal pool. I find it quite amazing. I mean, really are after taking the trees down for the airport, but all of a sudden, we're all concerned about the invasive species around the vernal pool.
Well, this is part of the mitigation that's being proposed,
I-
to try to balance and
I understand
compensate
that,
for
but
the loss of the
but doing that
vegetation.
my opinion, doing that during the highlight of the nesting season, after all the trees were taken down the winter before, is pretty intrusive.
Well, can I suggest then that we will take the timing issue under advisement, depending upon the particular species that we're talking about, so that the right time of treatment is matching the species, and take a look at the GEIR and Natural Heritage and others and see what the recommendations are for when this is done, so that it doesn't, to Eric's good point, cause even further trauma and damage to the system that is trying to recover from what it's recovering from.
Yeah, because you might have to do a little bit more the next season, because you
I-
waited a couple extra months, so you might have to do a little more the following year than you had, than
I don't-
necessary.
Our concern is it's not a little more. It's a lot more, and it's not from an effort point of view, it's just from, once it's out of control, it's extremely challenging to bring it back into control. And we understand there's a lot of sensitivity about repeated, human entrance into that area, which we are trying to minimize by keeping it low density instead of letting it get out of control and then having to go out many times a season to bring it back into control. We understand there's sensitivities about herbicide use. This minimizes herbicide use by keeping the populations down. And so I hear you, certainly, it doesn't need to be April 15, the start of the growing season, that we're out there. It can be.
We're later than that. usually here in
That's the
Chatham.
regulatory start of the growing season.
It's not
but
regulatory in
we-
Chatham. It's much later in Chatham. It's usually around May. And
Well, we can wait till, early June, but I think waiting till August or September, really, that would be a detriment to the native shrub population.
well, this could be also a question we can ask the Oxbow, see what their opinion is on this vernal pool.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Were you going to chime in?
Well,
on that?
yeah, I am. I mean, it is more than just the vernal pool that we're concerned
Yeah.
about, though. We're concerned about invasives resprouting throughout the project area. And it's my experience, and I'm not a professional, that as you say, the earlier you catch it, the easier it is to keep it under control. So after nesting, sure, good idea, but fall seems to me too late.
And
That's
the only,
just-
especially when you said that you might have to use a spray to do an overspray on the ground, and, there could be vertebrae on the ground and what have you. I mean, swiping, I could see painting the stems and all that, right? But,
Right, cut and dab is
using a
preferred.
broadcast sprayer, spraying herbicide on the ground, you don't even know what's underneath.
Right, which is why we said that would be if it's a monotypic stand, so there's not other native vegetation growing in that area, it's just one thing, or when it's young sprouts and it's, still it is the ground cover, then again, that's where it would be from the sprayer versus the paint or the dab. But a sprayer, we're not talking about from the back of a truck, like spraying
No,
up in the air. The
backpack. I
backpack,
had a state license for
just-
many years.
yeah, so we understand that, that's why we would prefer
Yep.
to get it, get it as soon as possible, get it when it can be cut and painted, and then keep it knocked back.
I would expect that the order of conditions will express the preference for cutting and swiping, and require that in those situations that you've described where the spraying is appropriate, that notice would be given to the agent who'd have an opportunity to look at the area before any spraying was done. And that's just a
Absolutely.
process issue. The order can handle
Yes.
setting up a process for that. Yes, go ahead, Karen, question.
So all of this that you're proposing is within our conservation area, correct?
Yes.
So can you address what might be bordering the conservation area that might come back into our conservation area? Because if they're, invasive right around, no matter what you're doing, they're going to creep back in.
So, excuse me, it would be those same species that we identified, because though it's a resource area, the ARA, it is an upland. And so in the adjacent unregulated uplands, we would expect to find similar species and densities.
So how are you going to protect this area that you're working in to remove invasives from the invasives that are right literally next door to it?
In those areas, there are more avenues available to the airport to manage invasives, including things such as mowing or an annual brush hogging for invasive species removal, as well as herbicide application, but it would not require the same necessary survey plots and monitoring over time with reporting.
Okay.
So invasive species removal is a mandatory part of the vegetation management plan in all cut areas, not just jurisdictional ones. However, the more specific plan that's more targeted
Right.
is within
Okay.
the jurisdictional
I
areas.
get that. I just am concerned about an effort being put to take care of our area, that we have jurisdiction, and it's right there next door. I mean, we usually will say to any property owner, how are you going to keep that invasive that's right there, next to you, out of it? And, mow strips, things like that, but I don't see how you can mow in the middle of a woods. But, and how long do you plan to continue this invasive management?
We're proposing to continue it for 3 growing seasons post-cutting, provided we're meeting the performance, the success standards. If there were increasing invasive species, we would continue to coordinate with this body and continue the management efforts
Okay.
until those success standards are met.
Because we usually require it to be continued forever. That's why I'm asking, and, there's a limit to your project, and so I'm concerned that once you all walk away, things start to come back.
Yeah, let me just pile on that. So when invasive species management and removal is part of the mitigation that is offered, and particularly where it is adjacent to an area that has existing invasive vegetation, the obligation and responsibility to manage it in the resource area, including the buffer zones, is perpetual. It's a continuing condition. So we require that in all of our orders of conditions. So your monitoring and the locations of the plot plans would make sense to do some at least near to where the upland is, the unregulated area, so that you can see where it's beginning to come in and take action. But that kind of, and I understand that those areas would be subject to the airport management of mowing and other actions that would at least try to keep any invasives under control and from entering into this area. But it is generally a perpetual condition to keep the mitigation area as free from invasives as is feasible.
Okay,
And we may
thought
make
I
it,
had heard
depending on
3
how the
years
timing
last
of
week
this
when-
works, 3 years, if it goes to extension for another 2 or 3 years post that, we would carry that forward specifically, and if it needs to be tailored, we can do that for those subsequent periods. Okay. You have a
I
question?
have maybe a countervailing perspective on that. Normally, we require that, well, we should check our regs, because that's normally for mitigation areas,
Right.
which this technically isn't, or restoration areas, which this technically might not be considered. So we have to be sure that we are applying the regulations equitably. In this case, this is being offered as invasive removal for a period of time. We have to be sure that we would be able to require that beyond that.
Good point. Bob?
I just have a quick note. Did you talk anything about disposal? I know I'm all about disposal today, but what about the invasives that are cut? What happens to all that debris?
They would be cut, bagged, and removed from the site. They wouldn't be left to drop their seeds.
Is that in here? Is that in this
It will
plan?
be in the
I
order.
appreciate you bringing it up. It will certainly be in the written document you receive.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
But that removed from the site needs to also require disposal at a licensed facility for invasive vegetation, not at the town dump.
Oh, of course.
Okay,
Yes.
just-
Yep. Removal and proper disposal.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on the mitigation? I mean, on the, invasive? Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's all
Great,
very,
thank you.
very helpful information. Where do you go next?
Sorry,
Go ahead, make your note.
I don't want to forget. I don't want you to
don't
tell me in
forget.
2 weeks that, Adrian, we spoke about this. All right, so the next up is mitigation for the tree removal. There has been some interest in tree topping, specifically around the vernal pool. That tree topping is very not preferred at airports. It's not preferred by this airport, but it's also discouraged by Mass DOT. And there's 2 primary reasons for that. One is it gets topped to that maximum allowable height. It's right there at that maximum allowable height. If it continues to grow up, it requires repeat treatments, repeat cutting to keep it within that safety zone. So it increases trespass into the wetland, it increases management in those ways. If the tree dies, it creates really great nesting habitat for larger birds, such as woodpeckers, raptors, and that's a wildlife hazard at the airport. So the airport has, as required, it has a wildlife hazard mitigation assessment, and it's taken steps such as removing the lobster trap storage area to decrease the risk of plane wildlife conflicts and creating habitat for large birds at the end of the runway increases those risks. So we strongly don't prefer tree topping. However, we do understand there is,
All right,
go ahead,
Before
yeah.
we move into the in lieu
Yes,
fee,
yeah.
I want to offer the opportunity for people to ask questions about this, because we've been talking around this issue for a while. And I guess I'll just start and say, I hear your point about if it's cut just to the bottom of the maximum allowable in that obstruction zone, then what you say makes sense. But depending on the growth rate, I would think that it would be feasible, and where I've seen it referenced in other orders at other airports, it's been cut below that so that there is some time frame that it will be growing before it reaches that back again, whether that, depending upon the rate of the growth of the species, that can kind of be managed. But I guess I wonder, and again, I guess this is going to depend on what the vernal pool consultant comes back with, that given, and we talked about this a little bit before, given the slope of the topography as it slopes downward to the vernal pool, which is, to be honest, in a hole in the bottom, how, and those trees, I would think, which should be able to be trimmed and kept, they're lower than any of the other surrounding trees, just by nature of the topography, the topographic range of the area. That is it possible to keep them, at least surrounding that area, at a level where they can survive and provide shade for the pool, and still avoid the obstruction zone?
So I'm just checking the maximum allowable height that's drawn in there. And right around the edge of the vernal pool, the maximum allowable height is 20 feet tall. So they would have to be cut well below 20 feet to be below that maximum allowable height for a sustained period of time. The shrubs that are in there are likely to grow to 12 to 15 feet tall.
20 feet right around in the buffer zone to the pool?
Yes.
Okay, let me open it up to questions on not topping.
I'm word parsing today, and it's not against you, it's against nature. Likely to grow to 12 to 15 feet tall when a tree already could be there with foliage and overstory. I think of shrubs as understory. I don't know if I'm using the right words, Eric, but a blueberry bush is never going to give as much shade as pick a tree. And I just, an oak, but my yard is filled with them. So likely to grow doesn't give me comfort when you're taking away a tree. It just doesn't. And I don't know how to resolve that in my brain. I'd rather see a tree top to 15, 10, even 10 feet of a tree, most likely, and I'm using that word because the tree could die when you top it, would provide more shade. So the conundrum for me is we're bucking against what nature is going to do.
Yeah, usually an oak can handle it.
It's also not a question, it's not just the shading, too, it's the habitat that the canopy trees are providing.
Correct.
If you take them down completely, that's completely lost. Now, I understand that from the airport's perspective, that's a better thing, because you don't have nesting going on in the canopy with potential conflicts with birds. But that, I believe, is why we came around to, despite our prohibition on topping, which, to be fair, we did because the only instances we ever saw it happening were for view purposes. So it didn't occur to us that at some point we might take a different view and say, from an ecological protection standpoint, it might be preferable to removing. But does anybody have other comments or questions about whether? Go ahead, Bob.
I just want to, for the record, I was never on board with the tree topping, so
Okay.
at least one of us here is
Okay.
not a fan of it. We don't want that for any other project. In this particular case, for these reasons, and just for the health of the tree, I don't think it's.
Yeah.
We always want to replace trees where they must be removed with lower growing habitat, which would be the ideal case here.
Correct.
But just letting whatever's there grow up without filling in gaps with additional low-growing shrubbery would not be the right way to go either. I think we would want to make sure we're filling in gaps with native shrubs in this area when the trees are, when and if the trees are removed. So anyway, I just have a different perspective on tree topping. I just want to make sure it wasn't,
Okay.
you know,
You are on the
or
record.
it's not that all of this are for
Oh, we're not
this.
necessarily unanimous. This is because we've never dealt with this before.
To add to what Bob just said, if we do go with shrubs and replacing, I hope that they're planted fairly mature, bigger bucket shrubs rather than
They're
seeding.
not talking about planting
I know
shrubs.
you're talking about seeding and things like that. Well, that's going to take a lot of years.
Well, I do think this has been something that's been bothering a lot of us. I mean, I hear you that when the canopy is removed, the excess light will encourage the growth in the shrubbery level, and that's fine in the understory. But I do think that we would want to put something in the order of conditions that would require monitoring of the regrowth that's happening. And if at the end of, say, the second growing season, when there's not adequate expansion of the shrubs that we know were damaged probably during the course of the project, that there would be an affirmative obligation to do some planting to fill in those gaps, because we know if gaps are there and nothing is planted, we know what's going to move in.
Invasives.
Right. So
So-
it's part of the monitoring effort is that one of the weapons to use is the planting of natives where there is a bare area.
So yes, the invasive species, or the mitigation we're talking about today is in addition to mitigation we've already committed to in writing, which does involve monitoring
Right.
in the growing season after cutting to identify if or where areas of poor regrowth are occurring.
Okay. All right.
We had proposed seeding in those areas, but certainly if there are bare areas, we could plant a more mature shrub there instead. So that monitoring for regrowth and cover should have had its own slide in this deck, but I was only thinking about, additional material.
Yep. Okay. Over here.
Yeah, well, I think it would be pretty hard to plant anything in there, because how are you gonna get water to it? Run a hose from the airport? I mean, it's,
It's the
I find it-
applicant's responsibility to ensure the success of those plants, so if they have to go out with buckets and water them, then they have to go out with buckets and water them. I mean, that's one of those things that's our problem to meet the success standard.
yeah, it's probably just, I would imagine that the undercover will grow eventually to fill in if you do not top the trees on its own without planting, I would imagine.
That's been the observation, is
yeah.
that the shrubs grow very vigorously, and actually studies at other airports have found that they outcompete and kill planted shrubs, the existing natives. So that's why we don't want to hop right in there with planting shrubs. We want to wait and see, and certainly if there's an area that's struggling, adaptively manage that area, but we don't want to proactively plant 100 shrubs so that they can be
Yep.
killed by existing natives.
Got it. And just from the opposite, right, we hear that, but in the case that it's not happening naturally. that
Action
there
would be
there would
taken
be
in
some action.
coordination with this body.
Okay. Anybody else?
I will say, this time, last time I was for the salamanders, this time I'm for the raptors. So I do appreciate that you're looking out for the raptors.
We
because
really don't want to, we
I
don't
know.
want to encourage
Me
them to live
neither.
in danger.
So, but having been on an airplane that ingested a bird at Providence Airport, yeah, I don't want a small plane to see that happen. So it's a bad thing.
Okay.
Okay,
I think that's it for this.
okay, great. So then in lieu fee, we had discussed that has been performed elsewhere in town, where a tree-based fee can be provided to either the Conservation Commission for use on conservation lands, or to a nonprofit to perform conservation work and/or tree planting. And that this was maybe done with some pump stations in town? No, I'm seeing heads shaking no.
It was discussed, but I don't,
No, actually, and I'm in the process of compiling what the town owes. We have said in our orders that they will do mitigations, which are plants, equaling however many square feet they owe us, someplace on town property. And it would meet with the approval of our agent. We have not, that I'm aware of to this day, taken money in lieu of, planting someplace from the town.
That is different than other conversations I have had, which led us to believe donations could be made to, such as the, the Chatham Land Conservancy, for this mitigation, since
I don't think we're saying it couldn't, are we?
Well, you can donate the 3,900 for Oxbow.
No, the town's going to be voting in 2 months or so, a town meeting on a bylaw to create a tree protection bylaw that gives new powers to the tree warden, including establishment of a fund that is used for tree planting. So there will be a fund set up. We've not done it before because it doesn't yet exist, but that's a possibility that we could, that the money could be paid into that fund to support the planting of trees. I don't know.
Would there be any reason that money could not go to third party, like local conservation organizations? There's no regulation that would prevent it.
I don't, you're out of my area
Okay, well,
of
anyway,
municipal
maybe there
law
is.
expertise about whether the town can send money to a private nonprofit. I don't know.
we're not beholden to it being a nonprofit. If there is this town fund that, is acceptable to the airport, we just want to work, with you to establish what that fee is, and that if it's going to be based on area, which is fine, or if it's going to be based on number of trees cut, which would also be fine. So we want to, because this is bylaw driven, we really want to just make sure that we're getting it right with you. There's not guidance, from DEP on what to do here.
But the important point is that the offer is being made.
Yes,
and
we're
then
offering-
Then it's up to us perhaps to figure out the mechanics of to where
Yes.
and how and so forth, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, just whatever that agreement is for that cost, again, whether it's per area or per tree, we just will, before I can make any final commitment to it, have to discuss it with the Airport Commission. But the Airport Commission is conceptually on board with this, as are the funding agencies.
When you say conceptually on board, you're talking about taking out a lot of trees. And it's a large area, larger square feet than most of the projects that come before us. I'm concerned if it were fee-based, the cost would be something that they are not on board with. So has this at all been discussed with them yet?
The fact of doing it has been discussed. Some potential ballparks have been discussed. We were under the impression that a previous agreement existed, and so we were hoping to see what the commission had previously agreed to help us, hone in that number. It sounds like that's not, I don't have accurate information on that front. So certainly, we want to work with you to get to what that number is, and we're not.
I think, and maybe I'm misspeaking, but I think in the past, when we've mentioned a fee, it's more been not town property owing us mitigation for a project like a pumping station. It's more of a piece of property that absolutely can't put in the mitigation required based off of what they're doing and the topography of what they already have. And so we have, at times, and never that I'm aware of, nailed down how that would work, said that it would be good to allow them to pay into a fund that the town could then use for projects elsewhere. But I'm not aware of, that I can remember, and my memory's not perfect, so, where anybody's actually chosen to do that.
we would like to.
So we don't
do.
have a what I'm
Right,
thinking.
right. There's not a
is-
set number.
I'm not
existing.
aware of a fee basis that we've come up with to figure this out.
Right. Perhaps the best way to proceed is we'll hear your offer, and then
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
Would you prefer an area-based or a tree-based offer?
But we don't know the number of trees, do we?
The number of trees, we'll have an environmental monitor on site during cutting.
Oh, after the fact, we'll know how many trees.
And so during that time, any trees over 3-inch DBH would be recorded as to their DBH or their, kind of binned DBH of,
Right.
your typical ranges, 3 to 16, 16 to 24, 24 plus, and species. So there would be a full log. That's what we're proposing, and because, as we've discussed, we can't flag each tree now. However, we do know it's important to you to have an accounting of the trees removed, and so that accounting would occur during the cutting, and the fee, will.
But to me, the big impact of the project is tree-focused. So
Yeah.
to my mind, if we start with some sort of compensation or a tree is removed, that's easier to deal with.
Great.
So, like Emery Pond and the Cranberry Bog area, it's a lot easier to identify, I think, at least I thought when we were out there, what trees would need to be removed. I mean, could we do sort of a hybrid and say maybe mitigation, physical mitigation could be done in that area versus the vernal pool? Depending on how thickly wooded some area is, I think some areas could benefit from some actual physical mitigation, where other areas, it's a lot harder, like the vernal pool.
I guess I'm not sure what do you mean doing additional plantings around Emery Pond and the Cranberry Bogs as
Well,
mitigation?
I know that at one point you said any proposed plantings would be at least 75% native, so at some point you were trying to address the fact that there might be the need for plantings. So really, that's what I'm talking about is.
Yep, that reference for planting we were using that in reference to the adaptive management of bare areas. So if we were planting shrubs
Right.
and/or seeding, we
Well-
would do that so the easement for that property around the Cranberry Bog and Emery Pond is not the airport's property.
Right.
They have an easement to it, and certainly they are allowed to take safety actions on it. We would have to work with the homeowner if the homeowner wanted those areas naturalized.
Right.
So we could ask the homeowner that, but that's, the final decision on that's ultimately not up to us.
Oh, no, I get that. I'm just saying that potentially there could be a hybrid solution to this. If the homeowner said, yes, I'd rather not have it be barren and, have something put in its place, that could be part of your mitigation.
And then I'm not fundamentally opposed to this, we can run this down. Would the commission then accept shrubs instead of trees? Because the bylaw does say tree replacement, I understand the
Correct.
intention is biomass replacement.
Right.
So then would the exception be made to allow for shrubs in lieu of tree planting so that we don't have we're not in the future cutting down and then replacing mitigation plants?
I don't know.
Well, we've done it before,
Yeah.
Yes.
but it hasn't been traditionally been a shrub for a tree.
No.
So that's the rub there.
Right, I mean, and then there's existing shrubs in those areas, so.
But we have done it. We have
Okay.
done it.
And are there not understory trees that don't
Yeah.
grow beyond, it won't make it into the obstruction zone that could be considered?
There are some understory trees that would not grow. Again, planting in these areas has proven to be a highly competitive environment, so it's,
right.
we're not suggesting planting, low-growing
Yeah, yeah,
trees,
no.
so that,
And to Eric's point, if you can't irrigate them in the first
Yeah.
couple growing
Yeah.
seasons, you've got some risk
so,
of
yeah, that's
non-survivability.
kind of the constraint there. We don't want to be mowing down spice bush to plant a flowering dogwood or some, so.
Okay, point taken. Okay.
Janet, I have a
Yep, go ahead.
question. Ordinarily, you know, people get paid to determine the value of a tree, like an arborist and so forth, and they have calculators that they use to determine the value of a tree. If an arborist went out there, looked at the trees, or looked at a tree, an average tree in that area, and determined a value, would that be something that you would consider?
Yes.
I mean, well, we can consider that. I don't know the value in terms of board feet of these types of trees that are out there. We could consider that to base the fee, the in lieu fee on that, the value, the commercial value of the trees, if that's what the commission elected.
Would that work, Bob, on even some of these smaller DBH trees?
Well,
Or is
the
it-
minimum would be, what, 3-inch?
The
3
bylaw
inches.
sets 3 inches as a tree,
Yeah.
3-inch DBH.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, every tree has a price, you know?
I'd be interested in that, because that would, I think that to the extent we're willing to consider a fee, and I'm still a little bit troubled by some of the legal aspects of it and how that works, but still, if we can get past that, I think doing it by number of trees rather than area is preferable. It's more precise, it's a better match to the
Yeah, that's
the
fine with
damage.
us. Well, like I said, we plan on having someone out there anyway, and recording what's coming down, so that can be translated.
And then, Bob, so they're not in the field, but based on the inventory that the observer compiles, would an arborist still be able to reach that
If you
conclusion?
have a predetermined inventory of the ones you're going to remove,
They don't.
We don't have a predetermined inventory. We would have
No.
a during and post-determined inventory.
It's post-inventory,
As you go.
unfortunately.
Be hard to do. I have a quick question also. We haven't got to the point how the trees are being taken down yet, right?
They went through a presentation of all the different
Right.
options. We haven't made a choice
Yeah,
yet.
okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
We can determine that, they said.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Anybody? Okay.
So how would the commission like to move forward in this vein?
Reluctantly, but, yeah.
On which aspect? This particular one, or?
I guess both the confirming the legal process, if it's, the receiving entity of those funds.
So you're talking about the in lieu fee?
Yes,
how
just
we
the
would-
in lieu
oh, just
fee,
that,
yeah,
just
because
that.
it seems like there's still a lot of process questions
Yeah,
around
I think
that.
we need to ask
before
town
we
council about
propose a
how,
number.
how that works, yeah. And we will do that and find out. And we don't need to wait for a hearing. We can let you know what advice we are given. And then it goes to you to start thinking about what the offer would be.
Okay, and
If it's,
would the commission like us to review in-place mitigation around Emery Pond and contact that homeowner to see if additional plantings in that lawn area would be acceptable to him?
yes,
Yeah, I think.
yeah.
With the proviso,
Have you marked,
they would need to be native plants.
Yeah.
yeah. And have
Yeah.
you
Not-
marked
not-
those trees yet?
No, I know when we were in the field, we said certain trees, like, yes, this area could be marked, this area couldn't. I was not under the impression that that was a requirement of closing. I thought it was gonna be all counting and accounting for the trees during the cutting versus some pre-accounting and some
Might help
post.
that homeowner to know which trees are being removed, might be more amenable to the process if he knew how much was going.
Yeah, because that's the area where the height is quite, the
height's
maximum level
fairly
is quite.
tall, and
Right,
we
so
could-
there's a fair number of those trees that won't be coming, and he doesn't have any sense of what that is.
Yes,
nor
we
do we.
could measure the trees in the lawn area near Emery Pond.
Yes,
And we could measure the trees along the driveway, but probably
Anything-
not the interior trees.
Anything that can be measured, I think, would be a huge help, and it gives us a better idea of what's going on over there, too.
Okay. good.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Ready. Okay.
Okay. So the next slides I have are about wildlife habitat and conversion of woodland
Sure.
to
That's a-
shrubland, because I do
yeah.
know
That's a very-
certainly very important.
Yep.
So this discussion is based on the 1993 final generic environmental impact for vegetation removal in wetlands at public use airports. This was a multi-year document to promote, but was finalized in 1993. It's about 7 inches of paper. In 1999, it was required for a generic environmental impact report update / expanded generic environmental notification form. And similarly, an update and expansion was required in 2006. These requirements were all preset by the prior approved document so that as projects were implemented, the record was updated with outcomes. So they do recommend measuring the area of the removal, so that's why we did do it that way, the total canopy area to be removed. But we do understand that the emphasis here is on per tree, so that's why we're doing the combo method of we submitted the areas and we'll count the trees. The 1993 GEIR regarding impacts on wildlife habitat were primarily based on literature reviews, peer-reviewed published literature, that it was largely from various forestry and other cutting projects. And so it did find a variety of outcomes. You know, some animal these in italics are quoted from the document. Some animal populations increased in foraging and habitation of clear-cut areas, while others decreased. Thinning in the southeast, increased bird diversity. Similar in the northeast, they had greater number and diversity of songbirds. Bird density reduced in the southwest, and it had no effect on gray squirrels. So at the time in 1993, the literature said it seems like it's mixed. Some animals, the habitat improves, and some it does not improve, but it provided some best management plans for these projects to move forward. In 1993, when that document was prepared, it was updated, this discussion of wildlife habitat, based on the completed removal of 498.3 acres of vegetated wetland and bordering land subject to flooding clearing at airports. And so it concluded that, obviously there was a result of loss of mature trees at airports. That's, very, very blatant. It also concluded that it would be unproductive to attempt to replant the cut areas for those same reasons we've been discussing about creating future challenges and future safety concerns. It did find that in cut areas, the resprout was vigorous, that it outcompeted plantings, which is why we've been not keen to be doing proactive plantings. It also found that the shorter trees that remained below the maximum allowable heights, the shrubs and the herbaceous cover that was there and expanded following cutting provided equal levels of soil stabilization, water quality protection, and improved air quality compared to mature trees. It also found that if there were existing trees providing specific wildlife habitat, such as a raptor nest or a denning tree, that needed specific review. But that otherwise, it concluded the habitat value of younger, early successional forests and grasslands could outweigh the value of mature trees due to the fact that younger trees, which usually exhibit more diversity than mature forests, and grasslands, which are disappearing throughout the Northeast, are temporary landscape features, and they're home to a large diversity of species, including rare species. And in the final sentence of the section said, therefore, in many cases, important wildlife habitat can be improved by vegetation management at airports. In 2006, the GEIR was again updated, this time based on the completion of 567 acres of VMP work in Massachusetts, including a specifically commissioned study of 5 years of monitoring at 10 airports to assess impacts to wetland interests, including wildlife habitat. And so these studies did find that high nesting songbirds were less likely to inhabit the area, that habitat generalists continued to use the habitat, although they did sometimes transition to a different phase of their lifetime. Maybe it specifically calls out red-tailed hawks, maybe used to nest, but now they forage very effectively in that area. So it concluded that there was a combination of winners and losers, but no universal loss or degradation of the habitat. And then similar to the last one, it discussed about the early successional state of shrubland, and that's an important habitat that is unique on the landscape as we have largely developed in urban areas, and then very critically have protected forests. We sometimes lose this in-between shrubland stage and grassland stage. And so that airports can actually uniquely provide this metastable habitat. And it concluded that wildlife diversity can benefit, again, by providing these varied habitats. It did discuss VMP activities proposed near vernal pools and within priority and estimated habitats. Sometimes those overlapped, sometimes they did not. But it found that the VMP activities did not adversely affect wildlife habitat when they incorporated protective measures, including time of year restrictions for cutting along amphibian routes and phase tree removal around vernal pools. So this is the available literature to date, and this is what's formed our position. And here in Chatham, we've prepared our impacts based on that aerial extent of canopy removal, and we will complement it with an inventory of trees to be removed. We are proposing to allow the vegetation to regrow and monitor it, treat invasives, so that we can have a natural community. If there are bare spots, adaptively manage those. We are including a time of year restriction for work around the vernal pool from mid-March to early May. And we are proposing phased tree removal around the vernal pool. So I just wanted to highlight that because it's a lot to go through. So I wanted to pull that out.
We have given that a quick try, and you're right about the 7 inches, and went through it online a little bit, but these are important facts that you are not asking us to believe you. This is from the GEIR.
Exactly.
I mean, no offense, but
No,
yeah.
it's not about my opinion.
It's right.
It's
So
about the record.
these will become findings that we will need to consider making.
Yes.
Because they are established facts. Yes.
I just have I'm not going to discuss whether I believe or don't believe in the results of this, even though it's a lot of evidence. Just remind me, are any of the areas that are within our jurisdiction going to be mowed periodically?
No.
Okay,
No.
right.
No mowing in your jurisdiction.
okay,
No.
thanks.
Nope.
Because that would,
Oh, that'd be a different story.
right.
Yeah.
No
that
mowing.
would- No. Okay. Is that the end of your?
That's it for me. I do have the guidance document to conservation commissions that I'd be happy to give you in hard copy if that's
Yeah,
helpful.
if anybody would like, we have it electronically, but some of us.
Yeah, I just have one copy with me now, but
Oh.
I know I'm a tab or highlighter.
Yeah, highlighter and pen in hand when reading. I'll get Crystal to make copies and have them disperse them. Thank you to everybody, because this is actually a pretty important. Yeah, I don't know where it ended up last time. I didn't take it.
I didn't take it, but.
Yeah, I don't think I did either. But anyway, Crystal can make copies. Yeah, it's we have digital copies of it, but as we're getting to the point of drafting, findings
I have
coming out of there.
I have
Yes,
a
go ahead.
question,
Yes.
Janet. Is there going to be any demarcation or any signage around the vernal pool after the trees are removed so that people don't intrude into that area, considering it's in close proximity to the airport?
We have not included that in our proposal. However, we certainly would if that's desired. Yep, we can add that.
I think that's a great point, and it's important because of the location of the bike path.
Yep, we
which goes
often
right by
include
it.
sensitive habitat, no trespass, no dogs.
Yeah,
Sure.
even like a short post and rail fence or something like that? I don't know if that's going overboard, but maybe in certain
There
areas?
is
Maybe-
a section of fence. The whole thing's not fenced, but there is a short section of split rail fence along part of the bike path on the curve, yeah.
But even maybe some sections on the opposite side, maybe of where the trees are gonna be removed, or?
The opposite side is right up against the airport fence, so there's
Okay,
not walking trails through there or anything,
Okay.
but certainly along the bike path edge, the airport would have no problem putting up sensitive area signs.
okay, great, thank you.
Other questions, comments? I do want to come back to address an issue that, oh my God, we did beat to death last time. But I think that we've arrived at at least sufficient documentary evidence to convince us about the appropriate size of the approach zones on either end, and whether the airport is currently using an instrument approach zone, which is the larger one, or just the visual circling approach. And what we came to is, I'm going to try to share this. I think that's it, yeah. Is the, I think I can't share if you are.
Do I need to stop
Yeah,
sharing?
yeah.
I don't. I'm not
Okay,
sure how to do that.
that's all right, you're out. I'm going to see if I. There, got it. So this is the airport layout plan, 2020. This was specifically approved by the FAA, and the FAA approval letter was put on MyTownGov along with this plan, and is in the Dropbox for anyone who wants to see it. And as you can see, there are various iterations for different reasons, and actually I would call everyone's attention to, this is all about the obstruction removal, this point of it, and you can see the diagram is indicating why so many trees are going to have to go, because of the way that the obstruction zone cuts down across all of them. But the interesting fact that I noted was, let's see if I can zoom in. No, more. There. At the end of the runway, this approach plan is, well, I don't know why, but it has a demarcation here of 500 feet from here to here. It's somewhat less than that, which leads me to think that it's probably about 400 to 450. And that's true on both sides. The 500-foot extends beyond it just a little bit. So this is clearly the approved approach plan that the FAA has approved. And I think from our perspective, at least from mine, and I would invite people to chime in, it settles the issue of what is the approved approach zone. And I believe that there's more of these. Here's another one. The runway center line plan view also shows the same at 500 feet on either end. And at some point in this place, there's this packet, there's also a table that indicates runway width and approach zone width, which is listed at 450 feet. So it seems that that's what the FAA approved, and that's what the plan calls for. So does anybody want to discuss that any further? I think it is what it is well.
Yeah, it's something that Janet found. I wish we had seen it earlier. For some reason, it didn't come to our attention. So as a follow-up question to this, are you aware of any other approvals? Were any other approvals needed for this approach besides that from FAA? In other words, state, county?
DOT certified this is the correct surface as well.
Okay.
In a letter.
All right. But were any other approvals, to your knowledge, required aside from these that you have?
For the size of the approach surface?
Right.
Different branches of the FAA, but yeah, generally the FAA and
It's
MASTI.
essentially the FAA.
It's,
Okay, all right, thanks.
yeah.
Okay. So, is there anybody online or in the audience? Would you like to come up and make a comment or ask a question? Yes. Yes, you may, but you need to come up here and identify and do the whole rigmarole and identify yourself, and, or you can sit there, it's your choice.
Press,
Yes,
press the-
well, you have to press the little button to make, turn the green light
took me a
on.
while to learn that.
It's,
My name is Juris Uxtons. I live in Chatham. I have a question. Based upon that chart on the right side, all those trees exceed the glide slope path. Since you are against top cutting the trees, chopping it, you would then, because all those trees have extended through the glide slope, those trees would be clear cut. Is that my understanding?
within the protected resource areas, they would be cut and left flush cut. Outside of our resource areas, they would be cut and the stumps ground out.
Okay, my question is, what is the space required from the plane coming into the glide slope that a tree can exist without it being cut down? Because the plane
Mark?
would not want to fly over 10 feet on top of a tree. So there has to be a maximum safe zone that any obstacle could exist. Tree, house, telephone pole, etc. So on that picture,
Yes, so
would all those trees be then clear cut?
there's the glide path surface, and then there's a 10-foot gap. And so there's a parallel surface underneath it, and that parallel surface is the maximum allowable height.
So
And
you're
that's to
saying
provide
that
that
a
safety
plane can fly within 10 feet of a obstacle?
Yes,
So if there's a telephone pole, it can fly within 10 feet of that telephone pole?
no.
I don't think any pilot,
Huntley
or
is
if there's a house
going to
with a
come up.
chimney.
This is the maximum allowable height is 10 feet below the surface, so that's the height that dictates what
Well,
needs to be
maybe
cut.
this
I can't speak from a
gentleman can
pilot's
answer that question.
perspective, but
But I
Huntley's
don't
up
think
here.
any pilot would fly within 10 feet of any obstacle.
You're absolutely right. Huntley Harrison Airport Commission. What this line depicts, if I'm correct, and I believe I am, is what they call the glide slope qualification surface.
Right,
All right?
I understand.
10 feet below that.
10 feet below what?
that is the area, the glide
Okay.
slope qualification surface. Planes come in above that. Think of this way, and I've explained it this way before. Think of a highway with a breakdown lane. Just let me finish.
Okay.
Turn that highway vertically, okay? Trees on the side of the road that exist in that breakdown lane are always cut back. Think of that as the 10-foot buffer. The planes don't ride the white line along the side of the road. They're more in the middle of the road. So that's what's happening here. We have the glide slope qualification surface. You have that 10-foot area below the glide slope qualification surface within which planes don't, trees can't, or obstructions can't be within, okay? Planes fly up here. They don't fly within 10 feet of the trees or the telephone poles or anything else.
Based upon that glide slope, can planes fly at that altitude, as that line shows there?
No, I just said, that's the glide slope qualification surface. They do
What
not
does that mean?
fly at that line. That's the white line on the side of the road that I'm referring to. And you have that buffer between the side of the road and the trees on the
Right.
outside the road that are cut back.
But cars do drive pretty close to the white line?
Cars do.
Yeah.
Pilots don't, because they want to be above that. They're flying a particular glide path, which is above that, a 3% glide path above that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody on the platform with a question or a comment? Is that a hand? Yes, Dr. Thompson. Oh, no, not again. Oh, no, not again. Okay, told me.
Which one of these, is this yours or?
No, I took mine, so that controls the computer mouse. But you should be able to use this
Oh, there's-
one, or there's one on the other side.
Okay. There you go. Michael Thompson, for the record, Michael Thompson. I'd just like to make one or two comments on what we've been discussing first. Just quickly, as I've sat in your seats in the past, thoughts come to mind. One of the things, Madam Chair, you pointed out that the vernal pool was a hole. It is. It really is a hole. It's actually at 5 feet above sea level. So it's right down close to the well, where the wells pump and where the aquifer is. So when one's talking about foliar spraying with a herbicide, I think you need to register that as a significant concern. Another comment talking about invasive species. Yes, remove the invasive species, but there are two issues there. One is the species leave a seed bank, a significant seed bank. That wasn't mentioned. And also invasive species move into disturbed areas. I mean, where there's been no disturbance, there are no invasive species is typical. Once they've been disturbed, the edge of the road, fields, gardens, etc., that's when they move in. I do think you need to be concerned about budgeting, how the airport is budgeting for all this work that you've been discussing. I think another issue, if you really went this way, is how can the agent monitor these trees and the trees that should be removed? I mean, he can't go around with an altimeter and measure the height, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a big issue. Then this issue of fee per tree came up, and I think that's outrageous. In fact, the airport planned to remove all the trees along the runway. They want to make that section, instead of being 250 feet wide, they want to make it 500 feet wide. That would pull up about 15 acres of trees. So if you're talking about mitigation for this, you bear in mind that there's a hell of a lot more trees that the airport will likely remove if they carry out all their plans that they have. The last drawing that was put up, that came from the airport layout plan. It was submitted to the FAA. They approved it, so-called approval. And the approval letter was sent within 10 days. And it has lots of caveats in there about how they haven't actually approved what you've submitted them. But the other point about that airport layout plan, there were 12 drawings. Some of them are outrageous. They're not real proposals. One of them is a departure surface, which is a 1 in 40 departure surface. You put that, do your geometry, that 1 in 40 departure surface would lead to houses being removed at the top of Great Hill. It's just totally unrealistic. We're talking about 20-to-1 surfaces here. So those drawings are not, as a whole, approved. So also the GQS, the glide slope qualification surface in one of those drawings is drawn as a 30-to-1. And that also is equally unrealistic. So I just make those points just to, but let's get on to this. This will be a very quick talk, by the way. Where am I? Here we go. Why is this not coming up? Whoops. Oh. Okay. I've gone down to the bottom, right? So, just very few comments, but I would make the point that airport statements about competing approaches. Oh, what's all this? No thanks. Airport statements about competing approaches have been extremely misleading and incorrect. Okay, aviation databases and AMPU 5123 confirm that Chatham Airport currently only has 2 published approaches called circling approaches, and AMPU 2641 confirms that these circling approaches are visual. Am I hearing something or?
A little background music for you.
Do you have something running in the background?
Do you have a video running on another program or that could have started? It's.
Have I accidentally started something in here?
I think it's a green. Is it you? Oh, it is.
Friday the 13th.
Sounds like it's coming from you, sir.
It's just, okay,
Okay?
okay. It was your phone.
I have hearing aids, so I had this on to, but, okay. So I pointed out that the aviation databases that are confirmed, Chatham Airport currently has only 2 published approaches. You can go and look in the database and see those. And they're circling approaches. And it's also stated in the AMPU general knowledge that these circling approaches are visual. Hence, the airport only has visual approaches, 1 in each direction. And there are presently no instrument approaches with type 4 approach surfaces, which is what I just talked about last meeting. So there's no 400-foot initial width as shown in the drawing, G1.3, which was submitted by the airport in your packet. AMPU 5.1.23 does state that the airport would like to publish non-precision instrument approaches with straight-in and lower visibility minimums. But, and the last sentence is left off here, but AMPU 5123 continues that this would require type 4 approach surfaces and involve easement acquisitions and obstruction removal. No. There we go. Oh, well, I tried to get rid of this fellow.
Click on the white space.
Click somewhere else.
Well, I did.
Out of the menu.
No, it's
Say cancel. Yeah.
it switched it back. Okay. So this shows actually the bottom of the picture is important because it shows the code. So the present airport approach zones is this inner triangle there. So that's like that's the present Part 77, which is in the 1958 map and remains to this day. And then the outer triangle is the non-precision straight-in instrument surface, which is what is being proposed, the Category 4, Type 4 approach. That's the outside limit. So the region in between those two triangles, the yellow and the pink there, is the extra area that they're asking for you to cut down the trees within. This was shown actually at the meeting to the Select Board 2 weeks ago, and Terry Whalen put up this picture, which shows he's overlaid basically those two triangles that I had up just now on top of the GIS map of Chatham, and the yellow zones are the new zones that are being requested here in order to accommodate this Type 4 approach surface. So just in summary, this NOI is not simply for maintenance, as has been claimed. It is for enabling new uses of the airport. It is, and I should also point out that it's notable that the State Wetlands Protection Act 1024-5 only allows airport projects which comply with Part 77, and also projects shall not include the expansion of existing airport uses, i.e. new uses are excluded in the State Wetlands Protection Act. So you're being asked to increase the width of the approach surfaces to enable new uses with an unprecedented destruction of a vernal pool, contrary to both town and state laws. These new uses are primarily for the benefit of turboprops to allow them to fly straight in without a control tower and to land in poor visibility. This, according to the latest FAA advisory, could include hundreds of people, especially in summer, or notably in summer, in dramatically larger RPZ danger zones. Paradoxically, Mr. Huntley agrees that the airport does not even meet safety standards for these turboprops and cannot be adapted to do so because of the geographic constraints. So why is a wider Type 4 approach surface even being considered? FAA Advisory AC 150-5300-13B and the AMPU Figure 6.1 both illustrate a displaced threshold as an alternative. And I haven't heard an alternatives analysis being discussed in this forum yet. Or better, just having the turboprops use Hyannis Airport, which would solve so many issues. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for that. Would you like to respond in any way? Briefly?
Yes, the only way I would like to respond is that we've covered this in depth already. My colleague Matt Karen last week gave an in-depth discussion on the types of surfaces. The FAA has approved this surface. We have a letter saying that, and that is all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Let me just ask you this. So that surface, the instrument-based surface, is currently being used. It's not aspirational. It's not something in the future, because there's language in the master plan that seems to, as Dr. Thompson pointed to, said we want to go to this. But is that old language?
Well, the master plan is a planning document, so I'll leave it at that. Sometimes plans do change. What we're proposing the work now is to clear what's existing.
Oh, there's a hand up. Okay. Hang on. Paula Lofgren. Yes, go ahead, Ms. Lofgren. Yes, that's her. But you're muted. So you need to unmute.
Okay, how's about that?
Okay, speak up so we can barely hear you.
Thank you. I would like to offer Paula Lofgren, Chatham. I'd like to offer my support for all the points that Dr. Thompson makes in his presentation this evening, and I share his concerns. I do have a clarification question. It has to do with the point, the final point on his first slide about the Airport Commission wishes to have this approach, and the fact that that approach does not currently exist as an approved approach, which says to me that this, this is something they would like to do. And that is my question to the Airport Commission. The FAA has approved what the Airport Commission has asked for in the master plan, but does the FAA require that Chatham have this approach? It may be a wish list for the Airport Commission, but is it required by the FAA that we put this approach in? When I sat on the Airport Commission myself, I know that the mandate that we were under was to balance the needs of the community with the needs of the airport. And if this is not specifically mandated by the FAA, does that change the conversation? Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mark, I'll let you, but also note Matt has his hand raised too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe Matt.
I think he wants to respond. Yes, go ahead, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to respond. So I do want to state first
Can you
and
please
foremost
identify
that-
yourself just so we have it on the record, please?
Yes, my apologies. Matt Karen with Gale Associates, airport consultant to Chatham Municipal Airport.
Okay.
Yeah, I did want to just make mention that the airport master plan was initially started to be drafted back in 2018. So some things have changed from the time that was originally drafted to where we are today. However, Madam Chair, as you pointed out, the approach surface in question is on the airport's airport layout plan. There is a letter of approval from the FAA, and I believe it's Mass DOT on sheet 4 of that plan. There's a lot of terminology that's getting thrown out there, turboprops, which I'm not even sure why we're discussing turboprops. It has nothing to do with the project and the tree clearing that we're looking to clear as part of this project. FAA Flight Procedures has, in fact, published a non-precision approach for the airport. They have a GPS approach at the airport that is current. That's exactly the surface that we're looking to clear to today. That's something that the FAA publishes, not the town, not the consultant, and not the Airport Commission. I would be more than happy, and I've done this in the past, would be more than happy to sit with Dr. Thompson and explain this and show him within the airport's advisory circular where that's all stated offline. But again, you have in front of you written correspondence from the FAA approving this surface, and I don't know what more we can do to demonstrate that this is the surface that exists today that we're looking to clear. But if there's any more questions on that, again, happy to get into that, but I don't know that we need to go back and do, sort of revisionist history to the airport master plan and getting into turboprops that are not the critical aircraft that we're clearing surfaces towards for this project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have something to?
There's another hand up.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Lofgren.
Thank you. Am I still unmuted?
Nope, you're fine. We hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Matt, for that question. You still have not answered my question, however, is that the airport layout plan, yes, was done during 2018, which is a new document relative to the history of the airport, but it doesn't answer my question, which is, does the FAA require that we have this approach, given the environmental nature of what has to happen on the ground, the fact that there's severe congestion around the airport? Are we required to have a Type 4 approach, or is it just the pilots would like to have one? Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Karen, are you there? Yeah.
Sure, yeah, still here. Yeah, in response to that, I will say again that it is FAA Flight Procedures that publishes the approaches, and that is an existing approach at the Chatham Municipal Airport. And per the grant assurances, yes, the airport is required to clear that surface.
Okay. I don't see. Dave, there's somebody named Dave with his hand up. You may go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi, it's David Bixby. Is Paula down? I saw her name a minute ago.
Yeah, go ahead. You're up.
This is a little bit of a change in subject, and I don't want to, if everybody else is done with this discussion, I have some questions. It was my understanding that the Conservation Commission made a discretionary referral to the Cape Cod Commission, but I haven't been able to find any documentation on that. Has that happened? Did the Conservation Commission make a referral to the Cape Cod Commission, or did they not? For this project?
Yes, we did make a discretionary referral.
And is that available anywhere for review?
I believe there's a memorandum that should have been posted to my town gov when we voted on that. If not, I'll make sure that it is and include it with the airport documents.
Could you send me a copy?
Sure.
Thank you. Next question I have is, the Cape Cod Chronicle just had an article last week saying that the Cape Cod Commission notified the Airport Commission that it had determined this project to be a major revision, is the language that was in the Chronicle. I'm kind of assuming here that they meant to say major modification, and maybe the Chronicle misstated.
That should have said major modification. That article also said erroneously that the Conservation Commission had asked for the minor modification. That's not true. It was the Airport Commission who asked, and the Cape Cod Commission has, as far as I know, moved it to a major modification process.
If I may, the Cape Cod Commission asked us, not the Airport Commission didn't ask the Cape Cod Commission.
Okay.
The Cape Cod Commission asked the airport to submit a minor modification.
Okay.
Yes, during pre-filing consultation, when the project was presented to the Cape Cod Commission, they recommended the minor modification tact,
Okay.
which is what we performed.
Yep.
As based on the referral, we are pursuing the major modification with them.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Mr. Bixby?
I'm not sure. So the Cape Cod Commission determined that a minor modification was insufficient. They instructed the Airport Commission to submit the project as a major modification.
No, I don't think it changes the submission. It just changes the process that the Cape Cod Commission is pursuing to review the project. They originally had it as a minor modification, and I don't know how, I'm not privy to what's happening inside, where that change happened or who made that determination that it should become a major modification, but
But the decision's been made.
yes, that's what yes, I think so, yeah.
I've asked for documentation of that and once again, I have been unable to find anything on that. Is it possible that the people involved, whoever they may be, could make all this public?
Well, you'd have to ask the Cape Cod Commission for that. That would be their records. We haven't seen anything. The information that I'm relaying, that they are treating it as a major modification and pursuing that, comes from, well, the Chronicle and from conversations that the Conservation Division has had with staff at the Cape Cod Commission. So I haven't seen anything in writing.
And the Cape Cod Commission has not been in communication with the town, with you people on the Conservation Commission regarding any of this?
No, not at all. Not at all.
That's interesting.
No.
So they have not answered your, you made a discretionary referral to the Cape Cod Commission. They have not responded yet?
Not to us, not to the Conservation Commission.
Madam Chair, can I clarify?
Yes, Paul, go ahead. Can you shed light on
Yep.
this?
Mr.
And
Bixby.
who's speaking?
This is
Mr.
Paul
Bixby,
Whitman.
Mr. Bixby, this is
Okay.
Paul Whitman, the Conservation Agent. I can answer your question.
Okay.
We have been in contact with the Cape Cod Commission staff. It was the Cape Cod Commission staff recommendation internally with the Cape Cod Commission to review the project as a major modification of the 2005 permit in lieu of reviewing it as a discretionary referral. So we have had contact, and you did request voluminous public records request, which we gave to you. So all of that information was transmitted to you recently. So you should have everything in terms of communications.
I have received nothing as of this point in time.
Okay, well, give us a little time. The request came in a couple of days ago, but you should be getting that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
One last observation then.
Go ahead.
Has there been any discussion of the 7-year period of validity for DRI decisions? The DRI decision was 2005. I think the Cape Cod Act and the Cape Cod and the enabling regulations place a 7-year time limit on DRI decisions, and that also applies to major modifications. And the Act and the regulations say that the local municipalities can't issue permits associated with that DRA decision in 2005 after 7 years. Has there been any discussion on that?
Yes, there has. I would encourage you to contact the Cape Cod Commission staff directly. These are probably not questions for the commission, but I can tell you that I had a conversation with the chief regulatory officer, and she indicated that there is a condition in the 2005 minor mod permit that allowed them to continue to review the project, which will be reviewed now as a full commission review, a major modification, and the expiration date did not apply based on that condition, which was in the old permit. So if you have any issues with that, you should contact the staff directly at the Cape Cod Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Donna DeBoer, Chatham. So I hope this is an appropriate question for this forum, but with the widening of the approach zones, does that, and if I'm understanding correctly, the current focus is not to increase plane size coming in, but does it leave the commission open to changing their mind in the future? And does that increased size allow larger planes if they decide they would like that?
Okay.
At some point in the future?
Yep. Huntley, I think you've answered this before.
The simple answer is no. It all depends on the design aircraft, and right now, everything at the airport is based on the design aircraft, which is a Beech Baron, twin-engine Beech Baron.
So, excuse me, so if you could, in more layman's terms, if I could understand that better, so the Beechcraft that you just mentioned versus the
PC-12?
Or the Polaris coming
Polaris,
in,
okay.
the charter flights coming in, the much larger planes that are a little scarier to me, having fly over my home, than the small private planes that come in and out.
Yeah, no, the Pilatus meets the criteria.
And that could be, so then that could be a larger, so we could have an increased traffic of that in the future, or larger chartered planes? That is my question.
No, not larger airplanes.
Okay, this has
Yeah.
strayed out of our area.
understand.
Yeah. No, I know there's a burning question about the size of planes and the frequency and all of that, but that is not.
Yeah, it's not in the purview of your commission.
And I
believe-
understand that, and I
I
preface
believe
my
Matt
question
Karen
with
has a
that.
response that he'd like to provide.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. And again, I don't want to get too into the weeds on this, as I know we're getting off track right now. But so Pilatus type aircraft, turboprop type aircraft, they can and they do and they are capable of landing at Chatham Municipal Airport. That is not something that's within the control of the Airport Commission. They're allowed to land there, but these approach surfaces that we're clearing are strictly for the existing critical aircraft. We're not looking to expand the surfaces. If the airport was looking to expand the surfaces to draw in different type of aircraft, we'd be going back to the FAA to change the airport's critical aircraft and update the airport layout plan. And there's no plans to do that on their capital improvement program, and there's no plans to do that I'm aware of, period. So, no increase in aircraft or traffic as a result of this clearing project.
Okay, thank you. All right, I want to, is this on?
It's on these very points.
No, but these points are beyond, they're beyond us. The number of aircraft and the size of aircraft is not an issue that is before us. We're not going to hear anything about that.
It's on the question that this lady asked.
But okay, but you can't speak from there. You can't speak from there. You can't speak from there.
Sorry, the question that was asked was actually the wrong question, but it was an appropriate question. She asked whether the increased width of the approach surface would allow bigger aircraft. It doesn't, we know that. But the thing it does do is that it allows landings in poorer visibility, and that increases the RPZ, the danger zones at the ends of the runway. That's the heinous effect of this.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Jerry, do you have a very quick question on this?
Jerry Stahl, Chatham. I'd just like to make the point that the sort of elephant in the room has to do with these two approach zone differences, the width. When they were presented to the select board at their recent meeting with the diagram that you saw up on the board, Terry Whalen, who's the town staff person for the Airport Commission, said that the two widths represent a migration of the airport from its old, the 200-foot wide flight path to its new flight path, which is the 400, which is what the consultants are asking you to clear trees for. But they're claiming that they're working on the 2005 airport when they're not. The airport since 2005, whether it's at 2018 or 2000, whenever they claim the FAA approved this new width and the new approaches, it's not the old airport from 2005 that they're asking you to rule about and clear trees for. They're asking you to clear trees for their future version of the airport, which you're not allowed to do according to the bylaws for changes to the airport. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, thank you. We've had this question. This has been at the heart of this.
The vegetation management plan is prepared to provide for the surfaces at the airport today. The 2005 era is not a planning document. That was when the Cape Cod Commission, within their jurisdiction, issued the DRI. That is why 2005 has come up. The vegetation management plan before you, within their jurisdiction, will be tied to their findings in 2005. The vegetation management plan is for what exists at the airport today. It is not for a future airport. It is not for a past airport. It's for the aircraft using the airport today that have at least 500 takeoffs or landings. So that is the design aircraft. Those are the surfaces, and they've been agreed to by the airport, professional engineers, Massachusetts DOT, and the Federal Aviation Administration.
All right, thank you. This conversation reminds us that there are many issues regarding the operation of Chatham's Airport. Our inquiry, however, is one small part of that. We are looking at protected wetlands and resource areas that comprise about 2 acres of the total clearing, which is more than 60. We have a small piece. We are looking at protecting the resource areas. The other issues regarding planes and sizes and is outside of the scope of our review. We have no authority to talk about that. We have no authority to rule on that. It's what we have said before. We are at the moment the only permitting agency that the airport needs to move forward with this. We have called upon the select board to initiate a conversation in the community to have these other issues aired. We can't deal with any of them. So I'm going to repeat my call to the select board. You will have an opportunity with the Cape Cod Commission, who will be looking at it in a broader sense as well. But we are determined to keep our review within the confines of what the Wetlands Protection Act and the Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw standards are for us for our permitting process. And they're very limited. They're pretty broad considering they were mitigation and now, but you know, in the grander scheme of airport operations, they're quite limited. So that is the only thing we're going to take comment on. Okay?
Thank you.
And I hope everybody else has an opportunity to comment and provide input in another forum. There should be.
And there will be. The next Airport Commission meeting on April 10th, we'll have a public hearing starting at 6 o'clock in this room, and everyone is invited, and we will be addressing some of the issues that came up here this afternoon. And,
Great.
you know, then the Select Board supports that, and
Great.
that's what, we'll have a regular Airport Commission meeting from 5 to 6, and then after that, we'll go into a public hearing.
Okay, thank you for that. So mark your calendars, April 10th, is it? All right. So we have some work to do, you have some work to do. We're going to, did you have something about our small piece of this? Can you hit the green button, push the,
Harriet Prout. My concern is the number of trees that are going to be taken down. And if I understand, you're not even questioning how many there are being taken down?
hundreds and hundreds. We are, but there's so many.
That is actually what.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying for 2 months now and tried to get the Chronicle, that 62 acres are going to be cut. So all of the trees that you currently see behind the job lot and all of that, they're all coming down. So only a few are in our jurisdiction.
So have you got, you don't have an actual number, or you don't have pictures of the trees that are actually coming
We
down?
walked the area, we saw them. There are hundreds. Then they're small because there are hundreds because they are kind of small. But
Why
outside of, well, they're only 3 or 4 inch diameter. You can't, and they're very densely, they're growing very densely. So we acknowledged in our field visit that there is no practical way of identifying them ahead of time. You can't measure them, you can't get your equipment for measuring in there because it's so dense. So we're really doing it
By
on.
drone? You can't take pictures by drone?
Oh, there are drone images.
That is what the clearing areas are based on, is the drone measured the elevation of the canopy, and that's
Okay.
how we have the area that needs to be cut.
And those
But
pictures are available where?
though the limits of the cutting are on all of the plans, and that's based on the drone.
And I can find those where?
The Airport Commission's website has all the plans.
Thank you
Yep.
very much.
And if not, they're on the, well, they've been posted to MyTownGov in advance of each of our hearings, so there's many documents there. We should probably compile them.
Thank you very much.
Get a free moment. Yeah, we're going to, so we're going to consult with Town Council on the question of the in lieu fee. And then and we will have the vernal pool assessment done. So the expectation is that the next time we meet, we need to be able to be prepared to finalize our conversations, and we have to finalize deliberations, because we haven't been doing that we're on the public record in terms of the performance standards. We keep going around, but I think there's nothing left to say about that, but we still have some internal discussions about the variance requests and the alternatives analysis that are in the documents. Finalize our, what we're going to expect and require in terms of the invasive species management that's been proposed. Finalize the mitigation with whatever we get from Town Council and advice we get from that. And to Jerry's point, or not Jerry, Eric's point, make sure we finalize and deliberate on what we will be putting into an order of conditions in terms of removal methodology. Is there anything else I missed?
I think marking trees on the, where they can for that one side, with the bog and
Yep,
Emery
okay.
Pond, so that hopefully the people involved can get a better idea of what's going on there, as well as we can.
Yep, okay.
During these meetings, we have committed on the record to certain revisions and amendments to what was initially submitted. Do you need a written supplemental document from us to codify those in writing?
Yes,
Or is
please.
on the record?
Because we're going to be, the final versions of anything that has changed in any significant and substantial way should be updated and revised, because they will become the documents of record.
Great. And just as a process point to the commission, the way that it works with the VMP is we submitted the draft VMP with the notice of intent.
Yep.
Upon receiving an order of conditions, we update the VMP with those conditions, with any.
Okay. They become
If you
part of it?
specify
They become part of
methods,
it?
it all becomes part of the
That's very
VMP,
good to
and
know.
then the VMP is finalized.
Okay, that's good to know, that they will become part of that.
Yes.
Okay. So with all of that, we need to pick a date to continue to a date certain.
It said May.
We have, I don't think April 10th is enough time, but April 24th.
Will that be enough time for the third party to?
No.
mean,
I
does
don't
it-
know, I'm hoping that we'll have something.
I'm curious, does it make sense to wait? I mean, I don't want to keep.
I know.
I don't want to waste everybody's time.
Here's
I
what
wanna
here's
be-
what I'll say. We can schedule it for the 24th. If we get word from him by about the 10th, 2 weeks before that he won't have anything by the 24th, then you can submit a request in writing for a continuance to the next date, which is May 8th. I can't see my
May
calendar.
1st.
Yeah. And we can work that, so that, you're right, I don't want to spend any more, the next meeting needs to finalize as much as we possibly can, so that we can get, and in the meantime, we'll be starting to work on an order of conditions. 'Cause
Okay.
there's a lot of conditions that are going to have to go in there.
We believe it. Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so April 24th.
He has a quick question.
Yeah,
I just have a quick
Yep.
question.
yep,
If possible, since the Airport Commission will be paying for any fees
yep.
for the in lieu piece, could we be included in that correspondence with Town Council?
Yes,
Just send it to Airport Commission at chatham-ma.gov.
yes.
Thank you.
We will include you. You should be in that conversation.
I move that we continue 240 and 438 George Ryder Road and 1652 Main Street to the meeting on April 24th, 2024 for a notice of intent.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote. Bob?
Aye.
Elise?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Eric? Cheryl?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you for your time.
Hopefully, we're back on the 24th or as soon thereafter as is humanly possible.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody else. We're going to take a 5-minute break at this point because we desperately need it. Yeah. We don't have a whole lot more. Oh, please, I wish.
microphone on?
Are you up next? Yeah, we're gonna do a couple of continuances. Oh, then Chatham.
Yeah. So it looks like we're back up. Paul?
Yes, we are back.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
okay, Paul, what's next?
What's next are 2 continuances. Hurrah.
Yay!
All right. First one's 28 Cranberry Lane, Richard and Jill Tepper, map 15J, parcel 18, SE 103653 is the DEP number. Project demolition of an existing dwelling and construction of a new dwelling within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicant has requested a continuance to June 26, 2024.
Right. I move that we continue 28 Cranberry Lane to the meeting on June 26, 2024 for a notice of intent.
Gordon, second.
Roll call, Bob.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay.
Next one on the agenda for continuance is 414 Fox Hill Road, Christopher LaCroix, map 11M, parcel 5-2, DEP number SE 103652. Proposed dock replacement. The applicant has requested a continuance to April 10th, 2024.
I move that we continue 414 Fox Hill Road to the meeting on April 10th, 2024 for a notice of intent.
Gordon, second.
Bob.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Cheryl.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Okay.
That's April 10th.
Next on the agenda is your last notice of intent, and after that, we just have a quick certificate, which no work was done, the minutes and discussion on stormwater, and it should be done. So, 21 Shattuck Lane, Clay A. Rosenberg and Andrea Lynn Flink, map 15C, parcel 12-6, SDP number SE 103671. The project proposed house addition, pool replacement. Hello, guys, hardscape.
Hi, this is,
Hold on. He's not finished reading the matter. Go ahead, Paul.
okay,
Finish
you
that.
said, sorry about that.
Project is proposed house addition, pool replacement, hardscape, and associated site improvements. That is the project.
Okay, now you guys should identify yourselves and you can go ahead.
Yep. Good afternoon, Derek Redgate, civil engineer from Coastal Engineering. And on this phone with me is Sean Papich, the landscape architect. We were here a month ago. We continued the hearing to provide some more information, mainly on the planting plan, which we had provided in the initial application, but it didn't have a number of plants and was needs some more information on the location. So that's been provided in the supplemental information for this hearing. The 2 other plans you see in the supplemental was confirming some of the zoning information. It was setbacks. So we've shown those on the plans, but nothing has really changed in the design since what we initially proposed. And one other change on the erosion control plan is we pulled back from the coastal bank the erosion control line from the coastal bank. We've put it at the limit of work, which is roughly around where the shed is on the plan that's on the screen. So that was a change to just basically the limits of work. We've pulled it away from the coastal bank.
Okay. Okay. What else do you want to walk us through in terms of how this has changed?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I can go through the project briefly, quickly again. We did it the last hearing, but I know it was a month ago. Nothing on the project has changed other than, we went to start to talk about the plants and the number and species and location wasn't on the plan that we submitted. So we sort of, called a timeout and thought that we'd pick up that conversation in this hearing. So I think that's probably appropriate is if we focus on the planting plan. But again, happy to go through the rough, quick summary of the project if you'd prefer that.
No, I think we remember the project. That's fine. I just wanted to know whether anything else had changed. So no, I'd like to have Sean go through the planting plan. Yep.
Thank you. Sean Papich is Sean Papich Landscape Architecture, 222 North Street in Hingham, Massachusetts. I want to make sure that you understood that there was already an existing, and I know that Jarek has his drawings too, that illustrate that there is an existing pool and a deck on the property today. And I'm not so sure how much of that you saw or
Oh,
remember.
no, we saw it. It's an elevated
good.
pool teetering on the edge of a cliff.
Teetering.
It was hard to forget. No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say teetering, but it just seemed an odd place for,
I appreciate
looming
the
is a better
the colorful
word.
language. No, I appreciate the colorful language and description. So we did extend in a very small amount within the 100-foot buffer on the east side. We extended the pool deck slightly, and then we actually retracted it a bit on the south side from where the current pool deck is. And so that actually shrunk a little bit. So it's still pretty similarly located, just in a little bit of a different shape, I'd say. What we did propose, what we did propose to do was provide some native plantings at the bottom of the wall, essentially for a good-sized swath, both actually inside the jurisdiction and outside the jurisdiction. We were proposing to use our typical species between the bayberry, beach plum, Virginia rose, and inkberry, all in those areas, in a swath all the way down to the area that is the existing pool equipment and will still be the same location for the new pool equipment, is where that area it's referred to as a shed. Essentially a little lean-to where all the pool equipment has been for the last, I don't know how many years this pool equipment has been there, but it's been there for quite some time. You can see all of our plant material we've identified in those areas. Roughly 750 square feet, probably within the 50 to 100. And then again, outside and beyond, we want the same feeling beyond the 100-foot buffer that we have inside the 100-foot buffer. So essentially also use some switchgrass, some native switchgrass. So stuck to the typical accepted plant palette in those areas. And that's really a description of it, as you can see there. It's mostly those shaded plants you see in there on the east side, the right-hand side of the pool terrace. Thank you.
So thank you very much, appreciate that. So did you count the plants that are on the outside of the 100-foot buffer in your mitigation calculation? Or is it only in the jurisdiction?
We would probably have shown, we did show them on the plant list, but when I refer to the 750 square feet, that's what's within the jurisdiction.
Okay, and out of 1152 total, okay.
Correct.
I got it.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, let me, before I'm going to open up to questions in a moment, but let me ask this one. And we talked about this, but it's not addressed here, and I'm wondering if maybe we have something wrong. The original NOI in the project description included, in addition to the above, the applicant also proposes to install 144 linear feet of fiber rolls on the coastal bank. The fiber rolls will stabilize the toe of the bank, prevent erosion, and provide protection and a barrier along the coastal bank. But there is no plan that shows the location of those fiber rolls, the size of the rolls, the contents, the system for installing them, anchoring them. So is that still part of the plan, or is that not part of the plan?
Yeah, so I can share my screen, and it is not part of the plan. It's been relocated, so I'll try to share my screen here.
Okay.
Just give me a minute. Sorry about that.
We all struggle with that.
Yeah, I have a lot of things open here, and
I do think there was a question of, it was, the fiber roll was really meant to be erosion control that would be placed
That's what
at
we
the
thought,
edge.
we decided yesterday, that perhaps what we were reading as a fiber roll was really the wattles and straw and the erosion control at the top, which was why we were confused about a fiber roll array going in at the top of a bank.
Understood.
Okay.
So I think that there was confusion.
yeah, if I could explain it, that's exactly it. And you know, it's a straw wattle with staked, and then the construction fence is blocks the the limit of work or the construction area. It goes just outside of the straw wattle line. So that's been moved up into the roughly the area shown where the new plantings are. And we're more than 50 feet away from the coastal bank. Previously, we had shown it at the definitional top of the coastal bank, and referred to it as fiber rolls. So yeah, that's been revised, and that's not needed for us to work in that area at all.
Okay, so on the plan titled erosion control plan, it's the proposed straw wattle with silt fence. So it's the heavy black dash line, which I'm assuming is also the limit of work?
Correct.
Okay, just above the top of the bank. Okay, so we do not need a full fiber roll plan, which is good news. Okay, with that, I'll let other members ask questions, because I have to write this stuff down. I'll start over here.
I have a question. The cutting border that's by the pool, is that a planting bed that's going to go all the way, or are all the white spaces with the diamonds in them cutting beds?
Yeah, the intent was for that to be just some flowers that you wanted to cut.
Okay.
Use for cutting there. That's
Okay.
really going to be it. Yeah.
And is there any possibility, given the size of the patio area and the terrace with the fire pit and the area beyond that, is there no opportunity to move that pool out of our zone?
I don't think so, just based on when we were reworking this, trying to get the usage. I mean, it's very, very close to what's existing there today. And we did pull that pool terrace up, probably give you a feel for that southernmost piece of pool terrace. We pulled up at least right around another 5 or 6 feet up away from where it is currently right now. So we did try to shrink that as much as we could.
Okay.
We really tried hard on that. But I will tell you that even though it's outside your jurisdiction, they're going to be planting this property up extremely heavily, that's for sure.
Okay.
And also to add on our plans, the layout of materials plan, there is some calculations that show the existing versus the proposed, and there is a reduction in the area within the 50 and the 100.
Okay. I just always try.
No, that's all right. No, nothing asked, nothing ever happened. Bob?
Yeah, I have I get this sense, but I'm not entirely sure that there's a fence within the resource area. I just want to have you lead us through whether it is or isn't there, and if so, where is it exactly?
Yeah, there would be a fence in the buffer area. Essentially, it wouldn't be into the full into the resource area. It'd be still within that 50 to 100. There would just be mesh cedar posts. And there's currently one, yeah. Of course, there's currently one now because of the pool. Scott in my office wanted me to remind you, it's right around the corner. Want to remind you, there's one there currently. And that's really just for pool enclosure.
Yeah, but they need to put it on the plan, identify.
Yeah, it's really hard to determine where it is. And then the follow-up question would be, if the pool is elevated to the degree that it is, why do you need a fence down, especially in the resource area?
Well, I think it's within the buffer, it's not at the resource.
Well, that's what we call the resource. That's the area within our jurisdiction, shall I say?
Yes, understood. Typically, where we're doing that is also a part of where you place your gate. Safety is always a concern in case anybody were to get up and in there. You could keep it on the side of the wall until it gets to be too short of a wall to actually be the pool enclosure, and then pull it off of that wall. So you could reduce it and cut down some portion of it. But either way, you'd still have to have a gate anytime we don't have a barrier that's greater than 4 feet. We'd have to have a fence.
Is it going to be not going to be elevated?
Nope, not elevated. Let me just clarify the question. So this pool is currently elevated, it's held up on some sort of pilings or something. The plan is to have an in-ground pool, correct?
That's correct.
Right, so you're going to have to put in a retaining wall to create, and that retaining wall is shown on the plan to create the space for, to create the flat surface to create the pool. So is the wall next to or on top of what's the relationship between the proposed fence and the retaining wall?
The proposed fence that we have is sitting off of the retaining wall toward the kind of what you might call the edge of work at this point.
Okay, can you please
so
add
it's
that to
sitting
your
up-
plan? Because it's not on there, so.
We do have it on the plan.
Where is that?
We've got it on our
Oh, gate,
landscape
hang on, I
plan.
see a gate, so that tells me
Yeah.
that there must be a fence somewhere.
Yeah,
but I this don't is the see fence.
Does the fence go around the whole yard?
The fence
Does it?
Better on the planting plan, the fence.
Okay.
Let's see.
Well, if what I'm looking at,
This is the planting plan. Where's the gate? There's the gate. Isn't this the
no,
gate?
the gate is,
Gate here.
Oh,
This
gate.
is all fence.
this is the fence.
It's marked, it doesn't
Yeah.
say fence.
No,
Well, we know where it is.
I don't know where it goes here. Oh, here it is, look, it goes here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's yeah, this is not a pool fence.
Can I just,
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
yeah, normally, it impedes the movement of wildlife in our jurisdiction. I think it would be a good mitigation offer to remove the section of that fence that's in our resource area.
We could take it in an area to the east of the pool terrace where we get up to 4 feet for our wall. But
Oh,
as you
there,
start to, as you move toward the south, as you're kind of like moving toward the shed, that wall becomes shorter than 4 feet. So when it's moving to the south, it becomes shorter than 4 feet. So we would have to at least kind of tie a fence. We could take it on that, where you see it running north-south on our plan on the far right. We could pull it a little closer once we hit 4 feet, which is kind of where the spire is, straight across from where the spire is. We could bring the fence off of that part of wall and run it toward the shed. And so we could reduce it by pushing it to the left on the plan, I should say, or to the west on the plan, and get it close to that wall. But it will, at some point, it has to engage that wall. Or at some point, I should say the other way around, as it moves to the south, if the wall is our barrier, then we will have to have a fence that engages and comes back to the shed, because it'll be less than a 4-foot grade change there. So that's where we need to have a barrier.
Well, even removing maybe the fence where you're at the 35 mark, next to the shed where it says 35 on the planting plan, just to the line.
Correct.
Maybe,
Yep,
maybe
correct.
just remove that section, would that way wildlife can move freely through there.
Yeah, so we could take and move it, that piece, and I don't know if.
I don't mean move it,
Derek, are
I
you
mean
still
remove it.
Is Derek controlling this right now? Are you controlling
On a steep coastal
the
line.
screen right now?
No, I asked the question.
No, I was wondering if somebody else was on, who has the.
Yeah, I'm not controlling it right now.
Okay.
I'm displaying, what would you like? I can let go, or you could show me where you want to go.
No, that's helpful. No, that's helpful if, just to show that kind of north-south line of our fence that you see there, we could use that, yeah, we could move that over, and if we go at the 100-foot and connect it to the wall, so take that 100-foot buffer line, yeah, exactly, and do a straight line along the 100-foot buffer to the wall. Yeah, well, essentially.
Yeah,
But
I
as
mean,
you come down.
the point is that if you can put the fence on the wall, then it's not an issue as far as wildlife moving is concerned. But right now, the way it's designed, it appears to be it's not a pool fence in our estimation. It's a yard fence. So we just need to have it pulled out of our resource area however you can do it to the maximum extent possible. However you wish to do it.
Okay.
I'm a little confused about this fence. Is it like on this, there's a really steep bank. I walked around the whole
It is.
pool, holding
Yeah.
on to the pool, because I thought, oh God, if this just goes. So it's on this very steep bank?
Correct. It would be a
It's at the
wire
bottom-
mesh
It's at the
fence.
bottom of the bank.
It's at the bottom of
No,
the
it's in the
bank?
middle of the bank.
No, it's in the middle, I think.
No, it's along the bank. It is along the bank. It's currently along the bank. There's already a fence in there right now that is there. What I'm saying here with Mr. Rawls' conversation or his comments were that we could keep the fence restricted essentially along the 100-foot buffer back to the wall. And then once we come to the south a ways, we would have to pull it off of there and engage kind of the shed area. So a shorter little run of fence reaching back to the shed from that lower corner of the terrace.
Better.
So
Why would the shed need to be inside the fence?
Yeah.
we were just going to use that as part of our pool enclosure, use the shed as part of the pool enclosure.
Well,
You wouldn't have to. We could pull it up. We could
yeah,
pull it
I
up a ways.
don't see a functional reason to have the shed fenced in. So I would think more along the lines of following the edge of that pool and then get out of the resource area as fast as possible.
Yeah.
All right. We'll look at that then, definitely.
All right,
Question about the wall.
go ahead.
How, this retaining wall, how tall is that?
So where it starts on the south side there, on the lower corner, it is basically going to just be at grade. And then as it followed the line of the pool terrace going to the north, which is toward the upper side of the page, it will be at about 4.5 feet tall when it is straight east of the spa area, which just a little bit, 4.5 to 5 feet tall as you get just past the spa area, which is the edge of your jurisdiction.
Okay. And is there any way you can decrease the size of the patio in the outer aura? I mean, I know we asked if you could move the pool and patio, but the right side with the raised spa and all of that, that's quite a bit of patio. And that would at least have less in our outer aura.
Well, we did reduce the size within the 50 to 100. We did reduce the size of that terrace.
It's 10 feet
We did do a lot of back and forth with the homeowner on the size of it.
patio furniture.
Pushed it and pulled it in terms of size, so we thought a reduction would at least be an improvement.
It is.
It is, it just, I always love even more improvement, so I was asking.
Okay.
Does anybody get the figure on the percentage that it's taking up of the 50 to 100?
Not much. It's not getting near the 45. It's fine. Anything else? Go ahead, Bob.
I know I'm late to this, but was there any consideration in getting rid of the Japanese knotweed along that bank?
I think that a lot of that consideration happened long before we were involved. I know they talked about trying to get it. It's pretty solid all the way down to the water.
Right.
Which is a really large extent. And I think cost purposes alone has really intimidated the homeowner in terms of the cost of trying to remove all of it. What's that? Yeah.
It seems like you're investing a lot of money into the plantings and the hardscape and everything else. And
We are.
that seems like it would be a priority for me to get rid of that Japanese knotweed. How about next to the plantings at least? Are you gonna have like a 10-foot, maybe a gap between the knotweed and the plantings?
Yeah, I think the intent would be in those areas where they're working would be to be able to cut that back as much as possible. And I know that use of glyphosate is not on the table, more than likely. So not only most towns, a lot of towns, they do not appreciate that. So it would just be repeated cutting. I think the intent would be to try to cut to the sides of that to every degree possible. Repeated cutting, 8 to 10 cuts in a season. And that seems to be, if you're not applying an herbicide, that seems to be the method.
Not to interrupt you, but just to clarify, the prohibition on the use of glyphosate on especially knotweed, it only applies to town-owned property.
Okay.
So private owners, cut and swipe as much as you can, get rid of that stuff.
That would be fantastic if they could do that. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Might make it feasible to have a go at getting rid of it.
Yeah.
I would agree that would probably be the only thing. I do think.
Plants in the.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just gonna migrate into the.
Your mitigation plants are going to be goners.
But definitely doing cut and dab techniques, specific injection into individual plants, that would be the method to go with, we believe, if we're allowed to do have the glyphosate.
So maybe we could have a management plan as far as the knotweed goes.
Okay.
We actually had asked for a management plan at that meeting a month ago.
And also, I noticed some landscape lighting in that large tree to the south of the pool had some landscape lighting on it. You plan on illuminating any areas within the 50 to 100?
We were proposing some small path lights along the edges. We didn't have any larger uplighting under that tree, so we were just proposing some landscape lighting, some small low-level path lights.
So low voltage?
Low voltage lights, 18-inch tall path lights.
Nothing up into the trees or anything like that?
No, we're not showing that there.
Okay.
Nope.
Are they on the plan?
Yeah.
They are on the plan,
three.
and they are
That's right.
illustrated.
It's those three. Yep, they are the three along the cutting border pathway. Yep.
I just had one more quick
Yeah,
question.
go ahead, Eric.
I'm done.
Yes.
First of all, I'm impressed with the size of your plants that you're putting in, 36 inches. You don't see that much. I was just curious on the inkberry. How is your experience with inkberry? I mean, I know it's on the list, but they just don't seem to do well after a while.
Have you been having trouble with them along the water?
Yeah, they tend to thin out and die in a short
They
period
get
of time.
leggy.
Yeah, the bayberry is an excellent choice. The beach plum's a little small. That's why I wish you'd get them at 36, but the inkberries just don't. They're just ugh. They just.
I don't know. I have about a dozen inkberries, and I would say 8 are doing well, and 4 are leggy, and they only have a few leaves at the top
They
and
do
a
well
bunch
with
of.
foundation planting.
Yeah, but they're all in the same in the same area, so it's hard to say.
Really tough.
Yeah.
Well, we would consider sliding those around and adding more of the bayberry or something
Bayberry's
like
a good
that.
bet. And also,
you
the
know,
last question I have, once you put the wall in and everything, and you remove the knotweed, the bank is gonna be really steep. I'm surprised
is.
you're not gonna use like a jute netting, to put down first and then plant in the jute netting once it's anchored.
Oh, we would use the jute mesh
Oh,
too.
good, excellent.
Yeah, we would use the jute mesh in that condition, because it is a tough slope.
Yeah.
And, you know, honestly, that's also one other reason why, trying to remove all of the knotweed is something that the homeowners are a little anxious about because of that slope. As much as we don't like it, we've seen it on a bunch of other projects all over, up and down the coastline. We've never had to deal with it with this kind of slope, I don't think.
Yeah, okay, thank
I think we're kind of anxious about that.
Yep. Okay. Anything else?
I will mention one more thing. I mentioned it early on, it's the shed.
Yep.
And I think I asked if he had any indication that it had ever been licensed for where it is in the resource area. I'm guessing that it isn't, or hasn't been, so I just want everyone to realize that by approving this plan, we will be approving the shed, so.
And you actually asked about the pool and patio as well.
I did.
So do we have any idea?
I think the impression I think the impression I
Jack,
had
do
is-
you,
Yeah, go ahead.
had you checked on that?
Okay, so could you please, before the next hearing, get that information and let us know what documents exist or what evidence there is of the licensing of these pieces?
Is this requiring another hearing?
Yeah, because you're going to come back with a different plan that shows the change in the fence,
And the management plan for the knotweed.
management plan for knotweed, fence design.
Maybe an alternative for the shed.
Put it elsewhere.
Or here.
Yeah. Out of the 100.
So we could schedule this, depending on, 2 weeks from today would be April 10th.
Does that sound okay?
Does that work for you? You'd have to get everything
Yeah,
in.
can I just ask a clarifying question
Sure.
first? So, as far as the management plan, that would be sort of in a narrative form, and not an actual, plan view. It would suggest
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's a management plan, right, it's what you're going to do to manage that invasive.
I know, the word plan, I just like to.
I know, it's not a
sorry,
site plan of any, of
clarify,
that
yeah.
kind.
Yep.
All right. Take it to the 10th of April.
I move that we continue 21 Shattuck Lane to the meeting on April 10th, 2024 for notice of intent.
Gordon, second.
Roll call vote, Bob.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Cheryl.
She left at 4:30.
Oh, she left at 4:30, I record reflect that. Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye, so we'll see you back here on the 10th of April, hopefully to wrap
Okay.
this up. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul.
Okay.
COC
We'll follow up on the shed permit, go through the file, see if there's anything there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next is a request for a certificate of compliance. This is a very easy one. 33 Whistler Lane, Charles R. and Maureen Cohen. Map 16J, parcel 38-10A, DEP number SC10 3532. Proposed additions, relocation of a septic system, elevating the driveway, proposed patio, and mitigation. So the work was never completed, so we just issued a certificate as work never completed.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Are you
Yep.
going to say something? No, you're not. Okay. You don't have to. Okay.
I move that we
Good.
approve a certificate of compliance for 33 Whistler Lane.
Gordon, second.
Roll call. Bob.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Cheryl. Not here. Mary.
Aye.
And I say aye, so that's done. Okay. I know.
Yep.
You're going to miss the show.
That's okay. He's a patient man.
Okay, we next have, hold on, Thad, we have minutes. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes?
No. But
There-
Liz, you weren't here for all of them, so we
One
can't
of
do
them.
them together.
Yeah. I did too. The formatting was very funky because they were in PDF, so I had to convert them to, and whenever you do that, you get something funky.
So we
So-
could do January 24th and February 14th together.
Yeah, let's do that.
because
Let's do
I
that.
think everybody's here.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, were there any changes?
I just accepted them all. There were
Okay.
some minor
I move that we
changes.
accept the minutes from January 24th, 2024, and February 14th, 2024.
Second.
Roll call vote. Bob.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Okay.
Okay.
And then the next one.
Then I move that we approve the minutes from February 7th, 2024.
Second.
All right, roll call. Bob.
Aye.
Elise. Karen.
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye.
And I vote aye. That's
No, you
approved.
abstained. You weren't.
Oh, that's the one I abstained from. Abstained.
Boy, we're really going.
We're almost done.
Okay. Aren't you lucky?
All right, Paul, we're just going to go to Thad's stormwater proposal.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
You're-
Discussion, Thad Eldredge, stormwater management in conservancy districts.
Hello, Thad Eldredge. I'm with Impact Chatham. And I can run something through the webpage. First and foremost, I was sick last month. I did not get everything done in time. We're not going to be at town meeting this spring. So we're going to keep this conversation as light as you'd like. I know you've had a long day. But it is good to start the conversation so that you have this in mind. We will be back. So, stormwater in the Conservancy District, with our zoning bylaw back in '66, we adopted the Conservancy District that didn't include a provision to allow for stormwater. In '79, every wetland had a zoning district associated with it. What's nice is we have a record high water elevation associated with each of those from the '70s. In the '80s, we expanded that to include the floodplain. And now we have a number of properties that are in Conservancy District where we're technically not allowed to use best management practices under DEP. We're not allowed to fill or regrade or alter the ground terribly, which I know it's not great to alter the ground, but when you can provide stormwater treatment, there's a true benefit. So the proposal will be to add it as a permitted activity. This goes along with, you're allowed to put pool equipment, gas lines, water lines, all sorts of utilities, and septic systems are all permitted activities already, but we're not allowed to treat stormwater. Today I went down to Oyster Pond, just because this is a great example. If you go there, we have a closed to shell fishing within 100 feet of the radius of the culvert, where we have stormwater runoff that comes down and into the pond. This is a very popular bathing beach. It'd be nice to clean this up. There was a project that was done I didn't take a picture of it, but it's off to the left from the scene. That cleaned up the stormwater in Oyster Pond well enough that it was open to shell fishing again after many years. And the shell fishermen were out there getting just tons of quahogs, big, and all the town folk were there like seagulls buying quahogs off of all the shell fishermen, and we made a few quahog pies and a whole freezer full of stuffed quahogs. So it was neat that it reopened. It's not done yet. This is a little runoff that comes off of Ridgevale Road. I walk by it just about every day. What you really can't see in here is all the sand that's accumulated underneath this cedar tree. There's a puddle that forms, somebody cuts out a notch, and it's untreated stormwater that's going right into, and it's all resource area, but this is heading towards salt marsh when you get to the other side of that cedar tree. This is the base of Misty Meadow Lane. It itself is not within a conservancy district, but just beyond that knotweed stand, you're getting into Frostfish Creek and conservancy district, floodplain. I mean, it's a problem that needs to be addressed somewhere. I was just driving down Scattery Road one day and saw the puddle and said, hey, here's something that could be taken care of. Now, the town, in the town road layouts, is exempt from zoning provisions, but usually drainage is outside of the road layout. So I've provided a map on here just to look at, this is the big one. What are the parcels that we have currently that are in the Coastal Conservancy District? And that's all of Eastward Point.
It floods all the time.
And technically, we could put in traditional drainage systems in these places. You know, your catch basin, your leach pit, but we have proximity to groundwater, so now you need a shallower system. So it has to be larger in order to infiltrate all of the runoff. And even with a simple basin pit system, you don't get the same level of treatment that you can. Recently, I was here with Christopher Harding Lane. Wherever Christopher Harding Lane ended up, it's right in front of me. So right in here, it's not the stormwater generated inside the Conservancy District, inside the floodplain. There's a good amount of water that is generated outside and heads inside. That one I really wanted to put a nice swale in, sediment for a bay, capture something so that it could be at least somewhat treated. But technically, we're not allowed to. The last project where I was allowed to do anything was Little Beach, where we took a landscape hill and we turned it into a landscape swale, and it'll catch the stormwater runoff, just the rainwater. Floods are still going to affect things differently out there. So, like I said, we're going to be working on this throughout the year. We have a couple of other initiatives that we'll be working on as well, and we'll be in time next year. Fortunately, we missed this year. Now, this puts most of the responsibility on the commission, but you're used to dealing with changes within floodplain, within the wetlands. The one saving grace is you do have the ability to have the applicant pay for the third-party reviewer when a project gets a little technical. Some of these can. So you could certainly bring in an engineer, and that's the saving point. When I first proposed this, I offered it to the planning board to have it reviewed, much like a driveway in the Conservancy District. And I was informed that their schedule's a little busy, that they would rather not review all of these. So I said, fine.
How about one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put it in under the special permitted category, just like the
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, is how do you deal with it? Do you add it as one of the exempt uses that's allowed as by?
It would be in the permitted section.
Okay. Would it need a special permit? Would they, is it?
No. Like
just
a septic
just be
system,
permanent. Yeah.
we can put septic systems
Right,
within the Conservancy District
right.
without going to zoning
Okay.
or planning.
Okay.
Whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, this at least, it provides a mechanism to let people, make these stormwater improvements. And I've given a number of examples throughout here that Dr. Bob was always fond of the Absegami Run. Technically, if the building commissioner had not looked the other way, they could have said, no, you're not allowed to do the regrading at the base closer to the creek down there. Years ago, we worked on Harding's Beach Road near Kema, and there's a low point, it goes right to the ponds. We have a couple of sediment forebays there that the town put in, and closer to the beach, there's a sediment forebay. These are outside of the layout. Technically, they should have met with zoning. Behind my office, they gained an easement, and a lot of Old Queen Anne Road drains into a forebay now, provides some treatment before it goes out to Perch Pond. There's some good that can be done here. I've been to the Energy and Climate Action Committee, and one of their concerns, the chair had a concern that people are going to use this to get what they want. And that's the same with land management plans, with any benefit that we can offer
Right.
before the Conservation Commission. Obviously, we use that for mitigation whenever we can. The hope here is to help clean the environment.
Right.
While the sewer is the major concern for the saltwater estuaries, as we start cleaning out those estuaries by sewering, we're going to be looking at what are the other problems that we're causing. And we could either take all the land and remove all the roads and all the homes in the floodplain, or we can provide some sort of mechanism to help work on them.
Right, and build resilience to, the impacts from increased storms and flooding and erosion.
And
all
it's
of that.
really the rainwater that we're looking at.
Yeah, so it's inland, it's not the coastal side, it's the inland.
Yeah, because the coastal side, everything just gets covered over.
Right.
But the stormwater, even in a regular storm, it's your first half inch or less, that's gonna pick up everything in the road and take it right down to the water.
I see it all the time in town. A lot of the older roads, the rural roads, there's no stormwater system. They just have where they've etched out channels. And the water flows right down into the wetland on both sides. And you think, it's taking with it everything coming off that road.
Everything that comes off the road, all
Yeah.
your oils, whatever else comes off the cars, there's sediments, there's
Yep,
all sorts of
Yep.
stuff. Yes, sir.
yep.
Janet, I got a question.
Sure, fire away.
In River Bay, where Eric and I live, off Riverview Drive, there's a forebay, I guess you would call it, off, what is it, Perch Pond?
No, it's between the two ponds, that's a neat.
Between the two ponds, yeah. And it goes from one, square, concrete, and then to another one, and then back into another one before it releases back into the pond. So that's what you're talking about.
Kind of, I mean, that's a 19.
That's a primitive one.
Yeah, did the town put that in 75 when they took the roads, or?
Oh, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
Probably.
But at least it treats it somewhat before it
Yes.
empties into the pond.
Well, my business is on it, my land's on Enterprise Drive, so all the water that comes
Oh, no.
industrial
yeah.
complex just goes right into the marsh.
Yep.
Oh, and you just reviewed School Street. There was I say just, it was a couple of months ago, there was a,
305.
yeah, Main Street, School Street.
Oh, yeah.
The stormwater from the road goes down. There may have been an easement for that was lost in paperwork that gets.
Right, nobody could find it.
W. We went through a number of different pipes, different materials, and then ended up in the cranberry bog on the other side, or the salt marsh former cranberry bog.
I remember that. Oh. Okay, so the status is, if we don't, maybe we got a special town meeting and you can
Sneak it in there.
sneak it in there if we
I
have,
don't want to call a special town meeting.
No, not for this, but, this town loves its special town meetings, so there might be one.
That would be a nice one. It would be like one article. That would be great.
Nobody would show up to vote no,
Yeah, it would be
Nobody
over
would show
in
up to
5
vote.
seconds.
We'd all show up and,
How did you say it was gonna be funded? Privately?
The owners.
it's the owners, yeah.
It's the owners. So in the case of Christopher Harding Lane, we had a perfect place we were providing mitigation, land management plan, everything was going to be stripped away. If we could have regraded that, created a forebay that would have captured everything and then drained out afterwards. That one has the added difficulty that there's a lot of clay out there, but we could have designed it. I remember one that was appealed to the DEP years ago, up on Salt Marsh, Cranberry Lane area, and we had designed it with a sediment forebay. It was all outside of the Conservancy District, but just in the buffer. And somebody complained about stormwater, and the DEP representative looked at it and said, I mean, they're meeting more stormwater here than they have to. There are cases where you can do that, and it's not terribly expensive to do, certainly not burdensome. When you can provide some sort of benefit, it's certainly a tool that we could use to help mitigate projects, but more importantly, it's a tool that we can use to help clean the water.
I do have a question for you, Thad. You're proposing this as a changing the, what's it called? The
Zoning bylaw.
zoning
The
bylaw,
zoning
basically. But you've been told they don't necessarily want to adjudicate projects associated with this change.
Oh, this is my favorite line. The town is like a hand with different fingers going in different directions. So the planning board is one finger, zoning board being another, but just the bylaw itself is administered by the building department, by the zoning enforcement officer, Jay Briggs, who's also the building commissioner. So if I bring a project to him and I say, okay, I want to regrade within the Conservancy District, he's going to go to the list. It's a prohibited use. We're not allowed to regrade in the Conservancy District, except for, you know, you're allowed to nourish the beach, or you're allowed to put in a raised septic system. There's some regrading allowed with reconstruction of a house. So he'd look at it and say, this is a prohibited use. You cannot get a variance or a special permit for it from the zoning board.
So it stops with him?
Yes.
Okay, so this change would allow it not to have to stop with him?
Correct. So it'd be like if you wanted to put a water service to your house in a Conservancy District, if you were down in a little beach area and said, okay, I need a new water service, that's a permitted use in that zone.
So the zoning board could take it up? It would get to them?
It would not get to them. A permitted use does not get to them. A special permitted use. So if you want to construct a new driveway or improve a driveway or a road in the Conservancy District, you're going to the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, and the Conservation Commission. But if you wanted to put utilities going to your house, you're going to the Conservation Commission, and that's it.
Well, I'm looking at the list of permitted uses, and looks like a number of these would require some sort of review by somebody, even if they're listed as permitted.
You.
Us, okay.
Just means zoning doesn't, you have to look at it. Right.
They wouldn't.
It wouldn't.
Zoning doesn't have to look at it because it's a permitted use.
It's considered having a permit.
So what would,
It still needs a
how
permit
would,
from us.
how would it come within our jurisdiction?
Well, if it's in our jurisdiction, it
It's within a
needs
resource area.
It's in, okay, all right.
Every Conservancy District is a resource area.
By definition, okay.
Yes, it's, the Conservancy Districts for inland, it's based on 2 feet above the record high water, and then it goes up from there. They have a different inland bank definition, which is more onerous than the Commission's inland bank definition. So the zoning inland bank is a little different than the Commission's inland bank.
All
But
right.
they're still well within the 50-foot buffer with all of those.
Yeah.
All right, so we might start seeing applications dealing specifically with this stormwater management, as opposed to anything that we normally see.
Yeah, we never see it because
We don't see those, yeah.
it's, single-family residential doesn't need any kind of,
Right,
so.
it's, single-family residential is exempt. I brought the Heather's Hair, what used to be the Natural Foods. That was before you. That was also before the planning board.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Samantha's, yeah.
yeah.
Yes, Samantha.
Oh, thank you. No, Samantha's.
I go there.
One of those.
Me too. So do I.
Do you go back and look at the little
I
sediment?
do, I do too.
All right, so, I mean, I'm okay with more work, aren't you?
Well,
especially if it serves a good purpose, right?
yeah, the good purpose is what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I will note that I went to look at the protective bylaw. Took a while to find it, but anyway, one of the prohibited uses, B, is no person shall drain, excavate, or dredge in a conservancy district. So wouldn't be draining, it seems like there's a conflict between this prohibition and what you want to allow as an acceptable use. You may have to modify the prohibited use language also.
Possibly. Usually draining, it's if you want to drain a pond or a wetland.
Right. Drawing water.
No, it just says drain.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. So I think you may need to touch both of those.
Okay.
Good catch.
So how effective are these 4 bays?
We could certainly get some examples from the stormwater management standards, and I can't tell you right off the top, and it depends on sizing and otherwise. We can provide
Has to
some
be
of
an
that.
improvement.
Yeah.
And the point here is not to mandate anybody it's just to enable them to be
allow
able
them
to
to
do
do
this.
it. I think
So even if it's only a 20 to 40% reduction, it's still better. And even with the stormwater management standards for like total suspended solids, you only have a 46% reduction. It's a 25% and 25% reduction before it gets into the leaching pit, so. And there are a lot of different varieties that are out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even if it cleans up Oyster Pond.
I remember swimming at Oyster Pond,
Oh, yeah.
one of those things on the beach.
I remember splashing around there. I had a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
of fun.
Yeah.
But it's stormwater. It's not something that,
No.
and it's a popular beach. We should be making that a little better for,
Yes, we should.
for the summer
Yeah.
fun.
Was there others?
All right. I'm going to get us out of here before 5.
Please do.
That is it. So I'm calling time.
We have
Thank you.
time to discuss
Thank
this
you.
again.
Thank you. And when
Thank you.
when you need to get those signatures again, let me know. I'm happy
Yeah.
to sign.
Thanks, Dad.
No, that's appreciated.
Okay.
It's the softer side of you.
I move that we adjourn.
Don't need a second.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye,
Aye,
aye.
aye, aye, aye.
Aye, Mary says aye. Bye, Mary.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Paul. Bye, Crystal. If you guys are still there, if you haven't.
Bye, Chatham.
Crystal probably left. Anyway. Bye. Take care. Yeah, bye.
Good night.